Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Greek Mythology, God of the Gods. Chapter 41. I don't accept it, I don't accept it. Ares was subdued, but fell to the ground, still yelling. Hermes pressed him and said coldly, "Human beings are a race favored by God the Father, your actions are already defying the will of God the Father. Still not aware of your sin. Quote, you don't need to tell him too much, just take it back and ask Father God to judge." Athena walked indifferently. Bright eyes swept across the god of war contemptuously. Ares' bull-like eyes suddenly turned red and looked at her. He looked at Poros, who was smiling lightly. "You too, if you want to let go of me and bully me because of the number of people, what's the point?" "What kind of?" the god of war roared again and again, shaking the eardrums of many humans below. "Shut up." Finally it was Poseidon who issued a cold drink, stabbed the trident with chill and gagged Ares' mouth. "Look at this scene." Poros laughed loudly in his heart. Ares, the god of war. A complete ignorant fool. A brain is a good thing, but he doesn't have one. Biggest mistake he made. It was Zeus who, for some reason, valued the existence of humans. But he didn't understand this, and acted in an attempt to destroy human beings. This stands directly opposite the present-day gods of Olympus. I basically didn't really do it myself. Count him to death. One of the dignified 12 gods of Olympus, son of Queen Hera, god of war Ares. Directly by Hermes, Apollo, Artemis. The three half-brothers took it down. Uncle Poseidon held his head with a trident. Otherwise, he is still a strong main god anyway. Why didn't he show any prestige at all? Just act like a loser. Empty with brute force and no brains. If he only used intimidating gestures, forcing people to believe in him, then you can only do it yourself. Apollo, Artemis and others will not intervene at all, and they may still watch the show with relish. After all, to these gods, humans themselves are not important. It just cannot be destroyed. But Ares chose unwisely, forcing them to join hands and take him directly. How stupid. For such a fool, Poros has no mood to pay attention. Signal to the remaining gods to continue. Soon there will be hundreds of thousands of human beings. Became believers of the remaining gods. Eventually millions of humans. There are more than 600,000 people who choose to believe in other gods. The remaining 300,000. Basically, they are believers who choose to continue to believe in Prometheus, Athena, and Poros. They are the fanatics of the human race. Even if Poros and Athena are doing shady things, indicating that they can temporarily break into other god believers. Nor are they willing to change their beliefs. Among them, Athena has the most followers, about 200,000. Poros is a little less. As for Prometheus, as the creator of mankind, in fact, millions of human beings believe in him while believing in other gods. There are not many people who directly believe in him alone. Athena is the real deal, the most popular deity. On the one hand, she bestows wisdom on human beings, and she can be regarded as one of the creators of human beings. Secondly, she is beautiful, powerful, and has many powers. She is a perfect goddess. This is very real. Poros secretly despises. What a superficial human being. He would not admit that he was actually a big fan of his sister. In his wild thoughts, this distribution of human beings has come to an end. Nearly 200 gods were present. Except for Ares, every deity has more or less received worshippers. Not among them, there is no such embarrassing deity as Ares. But no matter how weak the divine power is, how unreliable the priesthood is, each god has at least 100 or more believers. This picture made Ares, who was still imprisoned by several main gods, look even more ashen. To his head, I can't figure out why. It's just that the blue veins on his forehead keep beating, as if about to explode. Ares, have never been so humiliated, I swear I will. His growl was only halfway through. Hermes clutched him tightly. The messengers of the gods were extremely depressed. Why does his great father god have such a stupid son? Father God also let himself take him to do things together. Oh God the Father, I see you are aware of his stupidity. That's why a wise and intelligent god like me is needed to help him think about it. But this level of stupidity, it's beyond my ability. Hermes was sad and angry. Even complained a little about Poseidon. Uncle Haihuang, why don't you keep gagging his mouth with a trident? Don't take it away so quickly. Poseidon has turned around. But he took out a handkerchief and carefully wiped the tip of the trident. Can guess. He was probably afraid that his trident would be polluted. Poros, I'm sorry that you had only a split second against Ares. Let me not fully understand your strength. While wiping the trident, the tall Poseidon had a rough face. Said to Poros with a smile on his face. Poros was about to respond. The Neptune looked coldly at the surrounding gods including Apollo. Interrupting his unspoken words, I have a hunch that you will definitely come to the ocean to find me. At that time, I will definitely understand your strength. Patted Poros on the shoulder. The Emperor of the Sea turned into a beam of light and plunged into the sea. See Poseidon left. Hermes tried to restrain Ares, forcing a smile on Poros. I have caused trouble for everyone today. I will take him back to Olympus first, and ask Father God to forgive him. Everyone, I will take my leave first. He took some gods, carried Ares, and left quickly. Poros looked at his leaving back. I can't help but ponder in my heart, and return to Olympus. Knowing Ares' performance, how would Zeus deal with it? With the cruel and ruthless character of this king of gods, it is estimated that he will not be so light. I have to say, this kind of self didn't take much effort. He succeeded in making his opponent miserable. It feels really cool. But intrigue is ultimately a supplementary use. I want to achieve the goal of defeating Zeus. It still depends on hard power. At this time, Poros suddenly discovered that his reputation value had increased a lot in a short period of time. Finally broke the million level. Was it contributed by the surrounding gods? Or millions of human beings because they saved them under the god of war? The already high reputation in their hearts has finally climbed a bit. Poros, I'm leaving first too. Looking forward to seeing you in Olympus soon. Holding her daughter Persephone, the goddess of agriculture bids farewell to Poros. Before leaving, she whispered a reminder to Poros. Don't trust Poseidon, he is not a good person. Poros bid her farewell with a smile. Watch her walk away with the lively and lovely Persephone. Then Artemis and Apollo also gestured slightly to him. Say goodbye. Poros returned the gift as well. Soon, all the gods who came were gone. Looking at the gradually empty surroundings, Athena said with a smile at the corner of her mouth, they come fast and leave fast. Poros stared at her dignified face, and the two came to an empty forest. He suddenly said, Sister, are you leaving too? Athena nodded. The reason why Zeus asked me to come. In fact, it is to supervise His Royal Highness Prometheus, in case he prevents the gods from controlling mankind. Now that the gods have had an initial influence on human beings, it's time for me to go back and find him. Quote. See the reluctance in his eyes. Athena gently brushed his brilliant hair. Poros, you are also a famous great god now, it will be very convenient for us to meet in the future. Well, maybe it won't be long before I go to Olympus once. Poros said with deep eyes. Athena's face became serious. Your situation is a bit complicated. On the one hand, Pluto wants to rely on your strength to maintain the facade of Hades, but he is also wary of you. And now Zeus and Poseidon both want to recruit you, so it can be said that they are completely targeted. Fortunately, you are now the son of Goddess Nyx in name. It is impossible for them to risk offending Goddess Nyx and do something to you. Quote. Probably trying to find ways, all kinds of lures, so that you can work for them. Having said that, a strong smile appeared on the corner of Athena's mouth. Poros also smiled and said, then eat the prophet, and do other things. Well, I believe you can handle these things well. Athena put away her hand from rubbing his head. Suddenly, he solemnly reminded. What is really worth noting is His Royal Highness Prometheus. Zeus's emphasis on human beings, as well as the prophecies about unknown disasters, all reveal the huge secrets hidden in it. Based on what I know about Zeus, he will not easily let His Royal Highness Prometheus live in seclusion. And you, as his student, may also be implicated. Quote. Reminds me of the prophecy that Prometheus uttered that day. All pay attention. Poros nodded heavily. Then he took a closer look at Athena's flawless face. He said softly, Sister, don't just think about me, you are alone in Olympus, you should pay more attention. Athena smiled confidently. Although there are many gods in Olympus, I was a fish that fell into the sea. Whether it's goddess Demeter, the third-generation gods, or the fourth-generation gods such as Apollo and Artemis, they are all good allies with me. Only people like Ares who have no brains are so stupid and always disgust me. But do you think he's a threat? What? A smile formed on the corner of Poros' mouth. Ah chew. Which one is scolding me behind my back? Flying in midair, Ares, who was covered in a mess, sneezed violently, cursing and snarling at Hermes, who had been staring at him closely. The messengers of the gods turned their faces coldly, as if he didn't want to see him. But God of War is not conscious. He who had just been released from the prison by Hermes kept roaring. Athena, humans, and that Prometheus student. I must tear them all to shreds in order to wash away the shame I have suffered today. Clenching the big sword in his hand tightly, the god of war was filled with the evil spirit of blood and fire. Hermes stared at him coldly. Idiot, you still don't understand what you did wrong. Hermes, you dare to humiliate me. Ares stared intently at Hermes' face with red eyes. I remembered the thing that I was tripped by the other party before. He couldn't help saying angrily, if you and Apollo didn't stop us today, I can definitely chop that Poros guy in half. Another sword to destroy those humble human beings like ants. Quote, only by you. Hermes looked at the god of war. Sensing the ferocious fighting spirit of the opponent, the strong divine power of the fourth level of the main god. There was a sneer on his face. The fourth level of the main god is indeed a not weak main god. But I didn't see that blow at that time. You were shot straight away. They didn't shake at all. Anyone with a little brain should know the difference in strength. Alas, I think too much. Where did this guy get his brains? Heart full of aggrieved and grief, Hermes looked up to the sky and sighed. Then he said coldly, when you go back to God the Father, you will know how big a mistake you made. Cut, aren't they just some humble human beings? Don't say I didn't accomplish anything at all, even if I killed them all. What will God Father really do to me for them? Quote, holding the big sword, Ares didn't care. He claims that his mother is the Queen of God, and he himself can be said to be the son of the King of God. I don't believe that mere mortal things can be compared with the noble and great self. With Hermes already on the verge of despair, they finally returned to Olympus. As soon as Hermes returned, he came to the palace of the god king without stopping. Reported what happened to Zeus. After listening, Zeus, sitting on the throne, was silent for a while. Under Hermes' cautious gaze, the king of the gods finally let out a huge growl. Ares, get the hell out of here. It seemed that he finally felt the oppressive atmosphere around him. Ares, who was called in outside the temple, tried his best not to make a sound. Very decently saluted Zeus above. Father God, what's the matter with you? Boom. Before Ares finished speaking, an incomparably thick bolt of lightning suddenly struck down from the sky above the palace of the divine king. Like a ferocious dragon with teeth and claws, it violently poured on the tall body of the god of war. Zilla. The dazzling electric arc illuminated the magnificent and empty palace like daytime. Ares didn't have time to react. The whole person was split into coke. Howling in pain on the ground. Father God, I am not wrong. It must be this fellow Hermes, telling you bad things about me. I knew he was uneasy and kind, no matter what I did from the beginning to the end, he stopped me. Ares still wanted to argue. But Zeus, who was ashen-faced, didn't want to listen to his nonsense at all. Idiot, can't Hera give me a normal son? Lightning spear raised. Another extremely thick thunderbolt fell. Ares was completely enveloped by the sea of thunder. Dazzling and terrifying arcs. Every part of his body was torn apart inch by inch. Seeing this scene, Hermes above was terrified. He knows how powerful his father god is thunder and lightning. This is no ordinary lightning. Instead, it is used to judge the gods of the gods. A single stroke can chop a weak main god into ashes. Disappear forever. At this moment, the king of the gods shot with anger. Even if Ares is not a very weak main god, receive these two divine thunders. It is also on the verge of falling. As predicted, Ares who could have justified himself. After bearing the second divine thunder, the whole person seemed to be melted away. Powerless, he collapsed in the empty hall, with scorched smoke rising from his body. The breath is getting weaker and weaker. Fortunately, Zeus still remembered. The following fool named Ares is the son of him and the Queen Hera. After the Fury sent down the thunder, he took out a bottle of crystal clear water from his arms and sprinkled it in the air. Not long, a misty green drizzle. Immediately, it started in the empty temple. Crystal clear rain, with a strong breath of life. Every drop fell on the dying body of Ares, the god of war who was originally blackened by lightning. The pitch-black skin immediately resembled an egg shell. Was peeled off finely, reveals normal skin tone. Ares's heavy panting also eased immediately. Seeing this scene, Hermes looked enviously at the crystal liquid in the bottle in Zeus's hand. The water of life sent by Mother Earth is really useful. It's a pity that I wasted on such a fool. Zeus snorted coldly and stared at Ares, who was recovering from life and was struggling to get up. Clenched the lightning spear in his hand. He on the throne shouted coldly, I want you to spread the faith among humans, and let humans become servants of the gods. You only know how to mess with Athena and the students of Prometheus. He also wants to destroy human beings without authorization, and ruin my big business. I really wish I could be here and turn you into ashes under my lightning. Quote. Zeus's cold voice let Ares's head that had just been raised immediately shrugged. This god of war is usually reckless and dares to attack anyone. Only dare not make mistakes in front of the father god who rules the gods. Zeus said he would kill him. That's what's really done. This one is cruel, but even my favorite wife can swallow it in one gulp. Don't try how ruthless he can be. Looking at Ares, who flinched, Zeus seemed to lose his temper a lot. Sentenced coldly, go back and confine yourself for 100 years. If I think I see you take a step in the middle, I will break your leg. Didn't you always laugh at Hephaestus and lame a leg? Quote. Yes, Father God. Ares nodded hastily. Zeus on the throne put away the lightning spear in his hand. Ask Hermes. Tell me what you saw this time. Father God, I think there are two things worth noting this time. One is the appearance of Poseidon, who asked for help from Apollo and Artemis, and extended an olive to Poros. It can be seen that the ocean situation has reached a critical point. Quote. Hermes said carefully. Zeus sneered. The three guys, Poseidon, Arnolds, and Pontus, have been confronting each other for many years. Although the relationship has become more tense recently, it should still be some time before a full war begins. Quote. He suddenly paused, and looked down deeply with his lightning flickering eyes. The situation in the ocean may also have something to do with my grandmother. Whether Pontus or OCE Arnolds are her sons. It was just reported that she gave birth to a son for Poseidon. It seems that after being silent for so long, my grandmother can't bear the loneliness at last. Zeus' words made Hermes' heart skip a beat. The grandmother mentioned by Zeus is naturally the common source of the gods. Earth Mother Gaia, the primordial god. Does the war situation in the ocean have anything to do with this person? Hermes, who has always been timid, should not shudder in his heart. I dare not go any further. He hastened to the next point. This time I observed human beings, and found that most of them believed in Prometheus, Athena, and that Poros. It's not so easy for our other gods to spread among humans. Especially Prometheus, he has too much influence on human beings. Although on the surface few people directly believe in him, in fact almost every human being respects him the most. Having said that, he raised his head hesitantly. Father God, if you want to master humans, then I suggest getting rid of Prometheus. Get rid of him, son of Iapetus. Zeus' lightning eyes suddenly jumped. At this time, Ares was silent for a while. Finally couldn't help but said, Father God, I am willing to take the crime and do meritorious service and help you unscrew the head of Prometheus. HMPH, I noticed then. When those human beings offer sacrifices, they pray to him first, and then you. Quote. Ares' yelling voice rarely did not arouse Zeus' anger. Sitting high on the throne, on the majestic face of the king of the gods, a look of deepness suddenly appeared. Prometheus, humans, really can't always be like this. I am the king of the gods, everything should be firmly in my palm. Muttering like this, Zeus waved to Hermes and Ares below. Go back first, I will make my own decision on this matter. Hermes and Ares hurried out of the hall, watching the figure of the two leaving. Zeus suddenly sighed. As the king of the gods, he has many powerful gods under him, and most of them are his children. But whether it is the siblings of Apollo and Artemis, Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsman, Not loyal and respectful enough to him. As for Athena, although it is easy to use, looks submissive too. But whenever he saw her face, it was exactly like the face of the goddess who was swallowed by him. He couldn't let go of his mind. There are only two people, Hermes and Ares, whom he basically trusts completely. Hermes is slippery and timid. Ares is stupid and reckless. Basically did not betray his courage and wisdom. It's just that although you don't have to worry about their loyalty, it is often not effective to use them. I thought the two could complement each other. But now it seems that is not the case. Oh, it's as difficult as finding a competent subordinate. Poros, will you surprise me? For some reason, the king of the gods. The boy with blonde hair and silver eyes that he saw before suddenly flashed in his mind. That young god gave him a very special feeling. Kind of like meeting Athena for the first time. But different, so he had the heart to subdue. Let's settle the Prometheus matter first. It's time to go there. Zeus raised his eyes slightly. The figure stood up abruptly from the throne. The next moment, he came to a hidden and remote corner of Olympus. In this corner, impressively stands an ancient temple. It is not a tall building, but it has a vicissitudes and mysterious atmosphere. Even the main god, get here. I also feel depressed and afraid to approach. Only Zeus walked in with his head held high. When he entered, he called out the name of this temple in his heart. The temple of goddess of destiny. After entering, leapt into the eyes of Zeus. It was a dark environment like twilight. The empty palace is full of decay and vicissitudes. By rows of candles, dispel the thick darkness. Near the depths of the hall, there is a strange spinning wheel. 3 female figures in white robes sit attentively in front of the spinning wheel. Keep fiddling with the dense lines on the spinning wheel. These 3 women in white robes. The one sitting outside was a young and delicate girl with a youthful face, responsible for constantly stomping on the spinning wheel. The second woman was a middle-aged woman with a sad face. Holding a ruler in his hand, he was constantly measuring those intricate lines. The last one was an old woman with wrinkled face and gray hair. She held a pair of scissors in her withered and rough hands, and cut the threads from time to time. The whole person gives people a sense of fear in the twilight. When Zeus came to them, the 3 stopped moving. At the same time, he stood up and saluted. King of the gods, you are here. Atropos, Lachesis, Croter, you 3 sisters are still like this. Zeus stared at the 3 of them indifferently. Atropos, Lachesis, Croter. These are the names of the 3 women. And among the gods, they have another mysterious and resounding name. The 3 goddesses of destiny. This name is no stranger to every god who has seen it. In the court system of Olympus, at the apex of status are the 12 main gods. God King Zeus, God Queen Hera, hearth goddess Hestia, and agriculture goddess Demeter. And Athena, the goddess of wisdom, Apollo, the god of light, and Artemis, the goddess of hunting. Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsman, Hermes, the messenger of the gods, and Ares, the god of war. These are the 12 main gods. Is the direct ruler of Olympus. However, there are still some noble and powerful gods, whose status is usually no lower than the 12 main gods. For example, Themis, the goddess of justice, is known for her fairness and strictness. For example, the mother of the 3 brothers God King, Neptune, and Hades, and the former second-generation God Queen Godmother Rhea. For example, Zeus's 3rd wife gave birth to 9 muses for him, and was once one of the 12 titans, the goddess of memory, Menemosin. And the 3 goddesses of fate in front of me. Compared with other great gods with high status. The impression of the 3 goddesses of destiny. It is probably mysterious and unpredictable. Few gods have really seen the true colors of these 3 goddesses. Even their specific origins are not clear. The gods tend to think. The 3 goddesses of destiny are the sisters of the 3 goddesses of timing. Both are the king of the gods and the daughter of Themis, the goddess of justice. But Zeus knew, in front of these 3 women, the years of existence are even longer than him. This temple of the goddess of destiny, as early as when Uranus, the first god king, created the original god court, already existed in this world. And with the changes in the power of the court, the temple of the goddess of destiny also changed its location accordingly. It is often not far from the location of the god king. It's not the first time I've been here though. But Zeus still felt deeply afraid. This is one of the few places in the vast world that is not under the control of him, the God King. Take a deep breath, he said to Atropos, the eldest sister of the three fates. New humans have been created by Prometheus and have multiplied on the earth. The elderly woman holding scissors nodded slightly. We know about it, and the humans this time fit the bill. As long as their number reaches a certain level, the door can be opened. Suddenly, the three white-robed goddesses cast their deep gazes at the deepest part of the dim temple at the same time. Zeus followed suit. There is a door there. A tall, thick, colorful portal. There are dense lines on it, like a vast starry sky. And in the crack of this door, from time to time, there are shock-like roars. Like behind the door, something faintly wants to come out. Fortunately, on the front of the door, near the gap, a figure was actually tied up. He used his bloody body to block the gap in the door. Despite the huge impact behind the door, he is like a boundless sky. Block everything. When the three goddesses of fate and Zeus cast their eyes, this bloody figure looks like Tianu. Suddenly opened his closed eyes. Zeus, I will be free one day. And that day is not far off. In the blur of interlaced light and shadow, this figure looks like Tianu. The voice was very hoarse, very deep. It seemed that he was enduring some great pain all the time. But it also gives people a strong sense of terror. Zeus stared at his face coldly, and suddenly said in a deep voice, even if you come out, you should be looking for Cronus and Gaia. But Cronus is in Tartarus, even you. It's also impossible to break in there and come back. Quote. As for Gaia, a sneer appeared on the corner of the king of the gods' lips. You were not her opponent at the beginning, so what if you go out now? Boom, tied to the door, like the figure of Tianu. As if being stimulated, it suddenly caused a huge shaking. Son of Cronus, you are already the third generation, how would you know? Behind this, gate of ignorance, and gate of destiny, lies the real thing. Quote. When I can get out of here, that's when this door will open. At that time, both Gaia and Tartarus will be destroyed. Haha, destroy everything. The crazy voice made Zeus's heart tremble. He really didn't know the true origin of this portal hidden in the deepest part of the Temple of Fate. Everything about it, he was informed by the three goddesses of fate. And these three women undoubtedly concealed a lot from him. He had found an opportunity. Checked that door when the three fates left for the only time. That's when he slipped through the gap. It seems to have seen many things, including fear and dreams. But the only thing I can remember. It is a nearly perfect figure of a woman. The woman was still holding a box in her hand. Black box. When the number of qualified humans reaches the requirement, you will know everything. I could see the confusion in Zeus's heart. Lachesis, the second sister among the three goddesses of fate, said silently to him. Zeus turned away and took a deep breath. Finally, he explained his purpose of coming here. Atropos, I need you three to do me a little favor. What's the matter? In the dark palace, the king of the gods whispered. I want you to use your unique destiny authority to burn all the fires belonging to humans on the earth. All assembled on the flame of Olympus. My sister left too. Go to see teacher Prometheus first and tell him the specific things assigned. Then you can find a place to see what will be in the million fame gift pack. Quote. With my current personality, I should be able to reach the 9th level of the main god after a few more decades of full adulthood. If the gift pack of millions of fame points can get something good, I can try to challenge Zeus. Quote. Fly in midair. Poros thought about what to do. With the passage of time, the distance between him and Zeus has been shrinking. It is no longer unattainable to defeat the king of the gods. Until reaching the location of Prometheus. Only then did he restrain his thoughts. Outside a simple bamboo house. Prometheus with gray hair and beard. Sitting quietly in the open space in front of the fence. Concentrating on drawing something complicated and profound with his fingers on the ground. This cannot help but make people strange. Since the creation of man and the making of that prophecy, the state of Prometheus is greatly depleted. He has been recuperating in this hut in seclusion. Rarely go out. Looks a lot better now. But what is gesturing on the ground? Poros feels somewhat similar to the magic runes developed by Hecate. But it didn't feel right again. When walking past, suddenly felt an inexplicable force. From all directions, covering him. Poros's eyes flashed, and he suddenly noticed. Under this force, all kinds of authority of oneself or like a child body meeting a mother body was strongly suppressed. This made him interested, and the divine power in his body was running violently. Cast it out to the surroundings. Within a burst of bright light, the divine power successfully took effect. But Poros found that the effect is only half of the normal situation. This made him even more curious. The eyes of mystery opened, looking into the surroundings. He first saw the lines of light and shadows corresponding to the authority he activated. In the boundless space, an obscure, deep, almost transparent force. Like a liquid, it is viscous and wrapped around that light and shadow. When he uses the authority to pry the law, the effect is greatly hindered. Not just this law. In the surrounding space, the law of everything. They are all wrapped up by this almost transparent and obscure power. Explore the past along this source of power. Poros suddenly felt a familiar grand atmosphere. This is the power of the root. He blurted out in surprise. A pair of silver eyes as bright as stars stared at Prometheus. The white-robed prophet who was still drawing with his fingers on the ground raised his head. You are right, this is the power of the root. With a wide smile on his face, Prometheus beckoned Poros to come closer. Poros came up to him and knelt down slowly. At this time, he saw clearly the pattern drawn by Prometheus on the ground. It is indeed somewhat similar to the magic runes created by Hecate. But there is a big difference. The so-called magic created by you and that little girl Hecate is to imitate the authority of the gods and leverage the power of laws. But me, I am leveraging the root power that creates the law. Prometheus looked at him with a smile. Poros couldn't help admiringly said, the teacher really deserves to be the god closest to the truth. Zeus and none of them have comprehended the root, but you have touched it. Quote, if not, how can I create a more perfect human being than the previous 3 generations? Prometheus' face was as calm as water. Then there was a sigh from the corner of his mouth. It's a pity that my divine power is too meager and I haven't reached the peak of the main god, otherwise I can try to advance to the original realm. Poros wondered. Isn't the necessary condition for being promoted to the original, mastering the great power of the root? The teacher has already done this. Quote, Prometheus shook his head. Actually, if you want to become the original, you only need to have the root. But realizing the root does not mean having the root. Unless you can directly possess the power of the roots that already exist in the world, you still have to sublimate your original authority and condense your own roots. Without the divine power of the 9th level of the main god, there is no power to sublimate authority and condense roots. Poros probably understood what he meant. Some are similar to the Taoism and mana of Oriental monasticism. Enough Taoist deeds, but not enough magic power, you can't become a fairy. Although Prometheus is a well-known prophet in the court, his personality is not weak either. It has the level of the 6th level of the main god. But there is no doubt that there is still a gap from the 9th level of the main god. The 9th level of the main god, known as the apex of the gods, is actually not comparable to the lower levels. Prometheus looked at Poros seriously. Reach the 9th level of the main god, the authority, divine power, spirit and will of the gods. They will all reach an unprecedented limit, as if condensed into one point. Even in the face of the power of the source, it can maintain its own stability. Quote, for this reason, only the 9th level of the main god can face the power of the root after comprehending the root. Sublimate yourself and condense your own roots. Quote, if Poros realized something, no wonder it is said that the apex of the 3 gods, the king of God, the king of Pluto, and the emperor of the sea, all have the ability to fight against the primordial. It turns out that the 9th level personality of the main god is enough to maintain itself under the power of the root, instead of being defeated in one blow. There's part of it, but these 3 people, especially Zeus, are not simply 9th level main gods. Quote, although he hasn't comprehended the root cause yet, I estimate that his strength is not much worse than the real original one. Prometheus shook his head. Poros made a note of this. Zeus' strength has always been a mystery. It is not original, but it is completely above the main gods. The same goes for his previous 2 god kings, Cronus and Uranus. Neither has the root power, but neither is afraid of the original god. The Earth Mother Gaia wants to get rid of her husband Uranus, all by motivating her youngest son Cronus. This does not necessarily mean that Mother Earth, the original god, must not be the opponent of Uranus. But it can also be seen that Gaia is afraid of Uranus. I'm not a genius like you. I have 8th level master god power at a young age, right? Prometheus glanced at Poros. The latter nodded. Hey, it's only a little time before you reach the pinnacle of god. And I have been dawdling in the 6th level of the main god for an unknown number of years. This is where the limit of my talent lies. Poros understands Prometheus' sigh very well. The innate potential of the Greek gods is the most important. People with good talents can naturally reach the 9th level of the main god when they lie down and wait for adulthood. People who are not talented can basically only maintain their original level after adulthood. Exercise, comprehension, etc., actually have effects, but basically not much. Poros himself is the most talented. Waiting for adulthood is the pinnacle of God. Coupled with the power of the original crystal in the novice gift bag, it greatly accelerated the time for him to become an adult. So he was only born about 100 years ago, and he was about to reach the 9th level of the main god. And Prometheus is wise. Set foot on the root power that the god kings of all ages have not been able to touch. But after many thousands of years, there is still only the 6th level of the main god. Now he is more limited by his own personality and cannot be promoted to the original. Fortunately, the magic of you and Hecate gave me inspiration. After all, a generation of wise men. Prometheus was very open-minded, and immediately introduced it to Poros with great interest. I used the same principle to improve the magic. This is the way to build this, root formation. In front of the bamboo house, Prometheus introduced Poros enthusiastically. In the beginning, I actually wanted to imitate you and Hecate and create root magic. But it was later discovered that the power of the root is very difficult to be leveraged. Each cast requires a lot of time to prepare, and it is too difficult to cast spells directly. Quote. So I changed my mind later. Prometheus pointed to the complicated pictures on the ground, and said to Poros. Just like the formations in front of you, I can gather the power of the roots hidden deep in the world to a specific place. Quote. Due to the natural suppression of the law by the source, the gods exercise authority within this range. The effect of playing is often reduced by more than half. Quote. Then what if it's the apex of gods like God King, Sea King, and Pluto? Poros asked suddenly. Prometheus thought for a while, smiled and said. Although the 9th level of the main god has transformed in all aspects, the suppression effect of the root power is not as good as that of the other. But unless you really get to the root like I did, you'll still be affected. Quote. After a pause, he said again. Currently, this formation is only my first step. When I continue to improve it, the effect will be stronger. Poros nodded. I wondered in my heart whether I could use this formation to trap Zeus. While he was thinking, Prometheus' face suddenly changed. Teacher, what's wrong with you? Poros sensed his strangeness. The great prophet closed his eyes. He suddenly pointed to a certain direction and said, I foresaw that in that direction, I saw 2 monsters. I'm chasing someone who is related to me. Quote. Poros knew that Prometheus's prophecy was very accurate. With an, oh, he turned his gaze to the direction he was pointing. The powerful insight of the mysterious eye, coupled with the high level and powerful perception ability of the main god, let him instantly see the corresponding direction and what is happening. On a vast plain, too long with multiple heads. A terrifying monster full of terrifying evil spirit. He was fiercely chasing a strange-looking figure. The upper body is a human, the lower body is a horse, this person is. Poros looked to Prometheus. The latter immediately spit out a name. He is a former student of mine, named Chiron. Poros, please help him. Poros nodded. The figure instantly turned into a stream of light. Fly to the sky. ... Chiron has never been the same. Thanks to my lower body being a horse with 4 hooves. This is why he fled for so long in the pursuit of the 2 terrifying monsters behind him. As the son of the 2nd generation god King Cronus and a certain goddess, monster, or human being of the opposite. Since he was born, only the upper body is human. The lower body is a horse with hooves. Repelled by all intelligent life. Whether it is humans on earth or the gods in heaven. Although he is half a horse. But compared to some gods who like to become horses or cows and have leg with the opposite. He's too normal. But all gods and humans reject him. Except that great prophet who is kind and kind. Mr. Prometheus, I heard that you cultivated near here after creating new humans. But it seems that I have no chance to see you again. Looking around the vast plains, perceived two terrifying figures getting closer and closer behind him. Chiron stopped 4 hooves amidst the tragedy. Turn around resolutely. Put up the bow and arrow on your body, and aim at the terrifying monster that is biting violently. See Della, Cerberus, even if I want to be buried in your stomach today. Before I bid farewell to this world, I will use my bow and arrow to shoot through your scales and fur. Let the world remember my bravery. Roaring hard. Chiron, half man, half horse, heroically shoots his own bow and arrow. Whizzing, whizzing, several streaks of streamer-like cold light are like stars passing across the sky. Heavy shots landed on the two oncoming monsters. Laugh, laugh, only a few crisp sounds of blood and flesh splattering could be heard. A giant snake with 9 ugly heads that spits out corrosive venom. And a magic dog with a body like a giant wolf, black and fluffy hair, 3 heads on the neck, and sharp teeth. They all screamed in pain. The two monsters had a total of 12 heads, and the huge roar shook the whole field. Chiron, son of Cronus, you won't have another chance to escape. As my lord father ordered, after draining all the blood from your body, I will bite you to pieces. Let you know what the consequences will be if you let the son of the great Typhon suffer. The gloomy roar of the Hydra Della and the 3-headed demon dog Cerberus resounded through the sky. The sound alone made Chiron's eardrums tingle. Then the 3-headed, sharp-toothed, 3-headed magic dog Cerberus with a cold light suddenly stretched out the huge wolf claws. Grab it right away. Chiron wobbled on all 4 hooves, trying to avoid it. But the black and huge wolf claws, not only fast and accurate, and there is an invisible magic in the moment photographed from above. Like freezing time and space, prevents Chiron from taking any actions. He could only look at the fluffy, black and sharp wolf claws. Hit him on the head. It's time for this to end. Chiron thought so, staring at the sky calmly. Prepare to accept your ultimate destiny. Just at this time, in the distance, the 3-headed demon dog fiercely slapped its paws, and roared fiercely. When Chiron was astonished, impressively, he saw the back of the wolf's paw that was originally photographed towards him. At some point, a crystal-clear crystal staff appeared. It shone with magnificent light, passing a graceful arc in midair. Like cutting tofu, in the rapid swipe, it cleanly cut the huge claws of the 3-headed demon dog Cerberus. A puddle of black blood. Like a downpour, it fell from the sky. The 3-headed magic dog was in pain. A handsome young man with blonde hair and silver eyes, and a slender figure. I don't know when it will appear in the sky. Holding the long crystal staff tightly, he stared at the two terrifying monsters lightly. See Della, Cerberus, it's 2 Typhon's sons again. I don't know if you are familiar with the Sphinx. It's good if it's cooked. You are. Chiron looked in surprise at the figure that suddenly appeared in the sky. With doubts on his face. And the 2 monsters over there already issued a shocking roar. Cerberus, the 3-headed demon dog whose paw was cut off by the staff of spirit. 3 heads with sharp teeth and gleaming cold light. With red eyes, he roared in pain. God, how dare you hurt the great Cerberus? I'm going to eat you piece by piece. Quote, another Hydra Della, with 9 mouths full of venom, the snake breathes and breathes. 18 to 1 eye shoots a breathtaking light. You said Sphinx, she has been missing for so long, what does she have to do with you? Standing tall in the air, there was a slight smile on Poros' lips. His silver eyes flicked across the 2 terrifying monsters, and he said lightly, don't worry, you will be able to reunite with her in a different place soon. When he spoke, his eyes narrowed. I saw Cerberus, the 3-headed demon dog that had lost its claws. Black flames ignited all over his body. The 6 eyes were red, and they rushed towards him fiercely. God, go die. Black flames burn. Cerberus moved all 4 claws with its newly grown claws. The sharp cold light tore open the space. Covered in front of its huge body, Poros is like an ant. At this time, the spirit staff shone with astonishing light. A brilliant beam of light, like a javelin shot. It smashed down the huge body of the 3-headed demon dog. Ah! A painful roar came from Cerberus's 3 cold and piercing mouths. There was a bang. The earth trembled. The three-headed demon dog had a huge body, and was smashed to the ground like a meteor. A huge pothole. In the dust, present this plane. Cerberus. Hydra C. Della was frightened and furious. 18 eyes suddenly emitted a strange green light. A puff of foul-smelling venom spewed out from its 9 snake mouths. Wherever it passes, even space, they are all corroded and dissolved. Poros, chin lifted slightly. The spirit stick hits the void. Suddenly an astonishing cold spread across the plain. The terrible midwinter is coming, and everything is deprived of warmth. Everything in the void is frozen. A puff of venom sprayed. Halfway through, it all condensed into ice cubes. Falling from the sky, smashed to pieces on the same frozen ground. Hiss. Hydra C. Della's 18 eyes showed shock at the same time. Huge tail wagging, like trying to escape. You can't go. Poros. Indifferent voice came from behind it. Hydella has 9 heads, all stagnant at the same time. God, I am the son of the great Typhon. The Hydra took out his father's name, trying to frighten the god in front of him. What responded to it was the crystal clear spirit stick, a heavy blow. Boom. The dull sound spread all over the field, accompanied by scarlet splashes of flesh and blood. Hit the spirit stick. One of Hydella's ugly and terrifying 9 heads was knocked to pieces. Hiss. The severe pain left Hydella with the remaining 8 heads. While whimpering and roaring, 16 eyes are emerald green. It went mad, twisting its huge body towards Poros in the void. At the same time, the 8 heads opened their mouths full of venom. Bite ferociously at the young god with blonde hair and silver eyes. The shallow means of the beast. He gave a slight evaluation. Poros raised the spirit staff, and a burst of light locked on the tail of the snake that Della flapped in the air. Boom boom boom. I saw Poros shaking the spirit stick. The light emitted was like an invisible giant hand. Grab C. Della by the tail. Hit the ground in all directions in the air. A series of violent sounds, accompanied by huge shaking lights and shadows. Let the vast land become potholes. Chiron, who watched this scene from a distance, they couldn't help but jump their eyelids. Because the current state of Hydella is really miserable. He was beaten to the ground one after another like a whip. It was covered in broken scales. 5 more heads followed the same path as the previous one. He was thrown to the ground to pieces, bloody and bloody. When Poros gently put down the spirit stick, this originally domineering Hydra, already dying, the remaining 3 heads all had pitiful expressions that were hopeless. Suddenly, Chiron screamed in shock. Careful. He didn't finish his sentence. There was a loud wolf howl. Then came from the distant sky. God, die for me. Cerberus, the 3-headed demon dog who was just sent flying by Poros. His whole body was bathed in pitch-black flames. Heads like 3 wolves, a mouth full of sharp teeth, wide open. All 6 eyes were red with flames, taking advantage of the fact that Poros had just finished beating Hydella. It had been dormant for a long time, and it jumped out quickly. For a short time, leaping across vast distances, it swoops ferociously over Poros. Knows how to seize the moment, puppy. Faint comments surfaced from the corner of Poros' mouth. Just when Chiron issued a nervous reminder. His left palm was raised sharply. Press lightly in the direction of the 3-headed magic dog. Brush. The terrible cold spread across the vast space like a storm in an instant. The surrounding temperature dropped by an unknown amount in an instant. Full of flames, the 3-headed magic dog attacked quickly. First, I was shocked to find that my running limbs were not very flexible. A head stares down. On the 4 claws, black flames that were originally burning fiercely were found. A short time has gone out. At the same time crystal clear ice formed. It roared in terror. With fluffy hair all over, black flames ignited with all their might. To combat this amazing chill. But the crystal clear ice flowers quickly spread from its claws to its entire limbs. Then came the torso, tail and head. Just for a short time. This majestic 3-headed demon dog. His whole body was completely covered by crystal clear ice. There are only 6 eyeballs, which are still turning vaguely. Watching nervously, holding the dying Hydella in one hand. There is a faint smile on his face. The young god walking towards it step by step. Its 6 eyeballs turned more rapidly. Chiron saw what it meant. That is, don't come here. Don't come here. Young god, wrong Chiron, I extend my sincere thanks to you. Without you, I must have been swallowed by two monsters today. Quote. On the vast plain, Chiron, the half-man, half-horse, thanked the Poros graciously. After taking a look at him, Poros held the spirit stick in one hand and said with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Senior brother Chiron, teacher Prometheus asked me to save you. Well, are you a new student of teacher Prometheus? Chiron looked at the young god with blonde hair and silver eyes in surprise. A name suddenly flashed through my mind, and I blurted out. Poros, god of chance. Oh, brother Chiron, have you heard of me? Poros was a little surprised. He knew something about the famous half-man, half-horse hero. After all, almost all the famous heroes in Greek mythology. Whether it is Hercules, Jason, Theseus, Achilles. The future is all his students. It can be called the Greek version of Guiguzi. But I didn't expect the other party to know him. Chiron said to him, although I am rarely accepted because of my strange appearance. But after wandering on the earth for so long, I still know that Mr. Prometheus has created new humans. I also heard that you and the goddess Athena led the new humans to create Athens. Quote. Only then did Poros understand. It turns out that he not only has a reputation among humans and gods. In other places on the earth, it is also becoming more and more familiar. No wonder the reputation value has risen so fast. Not long ago, it just broke 1 million, and now it is more than 1 million. Keeping smiling, he said to Chiron, after I deal with these two monsters, I will take you to see teacher Prometheus. Chiron nodded. The two set their eyes not far away. The three-headed magic dog and the hydra that have been frozen into ice sculptures. No, now these two monsters. The number of heads has been aligned. He glanced at Hydella, who had only 3 heads left, with a loveless expression. And Cerberus, who rolls his eyes pitifully, is no longer majestic as before, but looks like a husky who has been beaten by fat. Poros asked indifferently. When I came, I seemed to hear that you were chasing brother Chiron. He wanted to drain his blood, what was he going to do? Quote. Chiron also stared at the two monsters curiously. As the son of the second-generation god King Cronus. In terms of seniority, he is still the brother of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Although because of his ugly appearance, he has not been seen by people. But for many years, no one dared to trouble him. But this time I came to Athens, looking for the teacher Prometheus, and seeing the new humans. Chased by these two monsters all the way. He is also very depressed. Stared at by two people. See Della, Cerberus 6 heads, 12 eyes. They couldn't help turning around. In the end, Cerberus showed a humanized hesitation on his face. Hydella immediately shouted, Cerberus, we cannot betray our father. Okay. A chill flashed across Poros' eyes. The spirit rod was raised heavily, and hit the only 3 remaining snake heads in Hydella. Snapped. There was a muffled sound. Hydella shattered a head again. This scene made Cerberus on the side shrink his eyes in fright. Chiron also looked at Poros in surprise. This junior brother is very ruthless. Well, the gods are all ruthless characters. Just like my brothers in name, all of them eat people without spit out bones. When he was thinking wildly, Poros put away the spirit stick, as if nothing had happened, and gestured to Cerberus. Don't be influenced by others, tell what you know, and I will give you a good place to go. As he spoke, he unfrozen one of the heads in the middle of the 3 magic dogs. After being free, Cerberus's head immediately nodded like a chicken pecking rice. Completely ignoring the brother Hydella next to him, with 4 eyes full of hatred and anger. Dear God, the reason why we hunt down this half-man, half-horse guy is under the order of our father. After the great flood, my father Typhon sent all our brothers and sisters to the earth. It was just letting us go around and occupy territory and do our thing. But not long ago, we received an order from our father. Having said that, Cerberus paused. On the huge and fierce head, there is a human expression. Young and powerful God, is your promise really valid? As long as I say it, you won't kill me. Watching it cringe. Both Poros and Chiron were amused. Looking at this magic dog before, it still looks very ferocious. Why is it really like a domestic pet dog now? On the surface, he looks mighty and majestic, but on the inside, he is so cowardly. On one side is the sea Della with only 2 heads. I couldn't bear it any more. He roared hoarsely, Cerberus, you cowardly traitor, you are not worthy to be a descendant of the great lord of 100 demons. The Hydra's roar angered the 3-headed demon dog instead. Its unfrozen head stretched its neck fiercely. A huge mouth full of sharp teeth suddenly bit the sea Della right next to him, completely frozen and immobile. One of only 2 heads left. Click, click, the crisp sound like chewing ice cubes echoes in the surrounding plains. The sea Della roared in pain. Under Poros' slightly amused gaze and Chiron's surprised face, Cerberus enjoyed it, swallowing the bloody piece of meat with his mouth full. Then he said happily, Hi Della, you snake species, you have no right to accuse me. Father has 100 snake heads himself, so he has a preference for the same snake species like you. And me and the non-snake species like Sphinx, Ortrus, and Chimera have to do dirty work. He's so unfair, why should I be loyal to him? Ha 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 ha, I've wanted to bite your head off for a long time, and today I finally have the chance. While licking his lips, Cerberus set his sights on the last head of the sea Della. At this moment Poros, speechless by the drama between the monsters, stopped him. Tell me what Typhon wants to do first. Okay, young and powerful god. Cerberus nodded, slowly said, Father's order from him. It was to collect blood associated with powerful gods, especially Zeus. Quote, the reason for this, I suspect that my father has the ability to deal with enemies through blood connections. Quote, the ability to use blood as the medium. After listening to Cerberus' words, Poros thought deeply. Immediately looking at it, Hydella's only remaining head was full of hatred and anger. He stared intently into Cerberus' eyes. I generally believe this statement. With a smile on the corner of his mouth, he said to the 3-headed magic dog. Hydella is yours. Then under Chiron's sighing gaze, Cerberus bites off the last head of the sea Della. Cerberus, you bloody traitor, I curse you. Before dying, the fiercely famous Hydra uttered the most vicious curse. Wait for Cerberus to clean up the blood on his body. Poros froze the 3-headed dog again and put it away. Chiron couldn't help but said, do you really want to keep this magic dog? Don't worry, I've already figured out where it will go. A smile formed from the corner of Poros' mouth. Go, the teacher should be waiting anxiously, let's go visit him first. As he spoke, he took Chiron to fly into the distance. Chiron will be hunted down, Typhon wants to be like Zeus in him. From the blood of Cronus. Quote, outside the bamboo house, I heard the news. Prometheus frowned. Poros nodded and said, Typhon is probably preparing to wage war against the gods. Prometheus sighed. Alas, in Zeus's mercy, Chiron didn't succeed here, and Typhon must be able to obtain blood related to him from other places. Quote, is this the fate's punishment for his flirtatiousness these years? The sigh of Prometheus made Poros laugh a little. Zeus is famous for his many lovers and many offspring. However, his fateful enemy, Typhon, is the ability to target opponents through the medium of one bloodline. If it is a god who is clean and self-sufficient, this trick will be difficult to implement. Put it on Zeus, it is difficult to find his blood. It's really retribution. But then Poros thought. In fact, I also have half of the blood, which originated from this god king. The smile couldn't help but restrain. Typhon's actions have been frequent these years, and it seems that a big battle is coming soon. Fortunately, Zeus bears the brunt, so we don't have to worry too much. He said to Prometheus. The prophet nodded. He cast his eyes on the half-man, half-horse student. Chiron, how have you been all these years? With a bow and arrow on his back, Chiron nodded. Wandering about land and sea. Except this time being targeted by 2 monsters, Sea Della and Cerberus. There was basically no danger encountered. Quote, there was a smile on the corner of his mouth, and he laughed at himself. After all, I am also the brother of the king of the gods. Prometheus laughed too. It seems that their long-separated master and apprentice want to have a good exchange of feelings. Poros took his leave with a smile. By the way, my gift bag hasn't been opened yet, it's all delayed by things. Coming outside, Poros patted his head. He originally planned to find an empty corner after visiting Prometheus. See what's in the million-renowned pack. I didn't expect to be attracted by Prometheus, root formation, first. Then there was the delay of Chiron. Only now is the time. He came to a valley outside Athens. He and his sister had lived here together for a period of time before. Now Athena is gone. In the secluded valley, he was the only one left. Arranged around, he immediately opened the system page. I said silently in my heart, "Open the gift bag." Ding, the gift pack of 1 million fame has been opened. Ding, you get the King of Destruction *1, the divine spell, Shadow of Shadow. Accompanied by the system's emotionless notification tone. First, a long black staff like a scepter appeared in the palm of Poros. This long staff is about half the height of a person, and its entire body is pitch black. Only the top is inlaid with a purple crystal full of complex and twisted patterns. At the moment of emergence, the surrounding space couldn't help but twist. A doomsday-like horror scene looms large in this valley. If it weren't for Poros's arrangement before, with the powerful personality of the 8th level of the main god, everything in this valley is locked. Otherwise this moment, the Earth with a radius of tens of thousands of miles will be shrouded by this terrifying force. And the whole Earth will shake. Open black lens bracket name, King of Destruction. The most powerful artifact that exists exclusively for killing and destruction, the King of Kings. It has the powerful power to distort the laws and shatter everything. Even the power of the root is difficult to restrain it. Pick it up and destroy the world to your heart's content. Close black lens bracket. The introduction given by the system. Let Poros look at this black scepter more seriously. The Eye of Mystery activates. He followed the purple crystal on the top of the King of Destruction, and looked at the law of light and shadow around him. I saw the laws that densely spread all over the world, every corner. At this moment, under the illumination of the purple crystal on the black scepter, all became twisted and trembling. It was no longer as orderly as it used to be. And go deeper into the law, staring at the inexplicable, almost invisible root power. There seems to be no waves for thousands of years, just silently deriving laws and restraining the mighty power of the world. At this moment, there was also a slight vibration faintly. Twisting the law, smashing everything, not being constrained by the root. Wouldn't it be possible for me to threaten the original with it? Poros couldn't help but come up with such an amazing idea. Soon he dismissed it. It is the King of Destruction, who is not bound by the power of the source, not me. It is undoubtedly ridiculous to challenge the original god with only a powerful artifact. But if I wait until I reach the apex of the 9th level of the main god, holding it again may be enough to fight Yuan Chu. Quote. Thinking of this, Poros' eyes couldn't help but brighten up. He has seen the hope of defeating Zeus. Just wait until you reach the 9th level of the Lord God and hold the King of Destruction in your hand. Then he has the confidence to challenge the King of the Gods, who is suspected to be comparable to the original king alone. By the way, there is also the divine art of Shadowless Shadow. Name, Shadowless Shadow, hiding the shadow behind fate, hiding the invisible at the end of eternity. This is a kind of hidden magic, which can restrain the breath and hide all traces of one's existence. Whether it is the trajectory under fate or the brand mark in history. In addition, it can create a phantom body that is not tangible. Hiding behind fate, hiding at the end of eternity, sounds amazing. Poros couldn't help thinking about this magical technique. It took a lot of time. It was only then that Poros mastered the study of Shadow of No Shadow. As the system introduction said, this is a kind of magical art that restrains breath and hides the existence of brand marks. In addition, there is a shadow body that can be regarded as a head-adding ability, but does not have much attack power. It doesn't look like much, but where it's really advanced is after becoming the Shadowless Shadow. Even from the macro perspective of fate and time, I can't even discover your existence. The popular point is to erase the brand of history and eliminate the traces of the law of causality. This can be said. It has gone down to the root level. Poros took so long and barely made half of it. Hiding behind the back of fate. Phew, the other half of hiding in the end of eternity still can't be done. Let out a long breath. Poros rubbed his temples, gave up and continued to study. The other half of Shadowless Shadow. Fully at the root level. It is simply not what he can accomplish at present. But concealment and the back of fate is enough. Using this trick, even a few originals. He also had the confidence to walk in front of them without being easily detected by them. Maybe I can try now, go to Olympus and assassinate Zeus. Poros' dislike of Zeus was deeply rooted. Whenever the strength has been improved and new abilities have been acquired. I just want to say hello to this god king. But this time he really felt it. It is possible to successfully attack Zeus and give him a fatal blow. Let's go out first, it's been a bit long to study here if you don't pay attention. Saying so, Poros walked outside, just out of the valley. He instinctively felt something was wrong. Follow the direction to Athens. What he saw surprised him even more. Originally under the construction of him and Athena. A thriving, prosperous human gathering place. At this moment, the goal is a barbaric scene of a man drinking blood. Thousands of humans gathered outside Athens. Facing the tall altar, he continued to pray. Their faces were full of hunger, and many of them had the smell of disease on their bodies. Eyes full of pain and numbness. This even includes the two leaders Alpha and Beta. Both of them looked desperate. Kneeling before the altar, praying non-stop. But there was no longer any hope in his eyes. Poros even discovered that there were already millions of human beings. Instead of growing, it dropped by nearly half directly. What happened here? With such doubts, Poros heard the prayers of Alpha and other humans. Great gods, please issue instructions. What did we do wrong? The earth lost its fire. Let us drink blood like wild beasts. Quote, Father Prometheus, King of gods Zeus, Goddess Athena, God of opportunity Poros, please send revelation. These human voices of despair and agony. Let Poros understand what happened. The earth lost its fire. Zeus did it. Poros instantly thought of the king of the gods on Mount Olympus. Besides him, how could any god do such a thing? Wait, it's not good. With a flash in his eyes, he turned around and flew towards the place where Prometheus lived. It didn't take long for him to come to the bamboo house. But in the eyes, there is only Chiron, who is half man and half horse. He had all four hoofs bent, and a set of bows and arrows was clutched tightly in both hands. From time to time, he looked at the distant sky. It looked like he was nervously waiting for something. When Poros appeared, he jumped up excitedly. Junior brother Poros, you are finally back. Do you know what happened on the earth? Quote, humanity's fire was taken away by Zeus. Poros replied quickly. Chiron nodded quickly. That's right, it happened during this time. I don't know when it started, it is gradually difficult for human beings to raise a little flame. Use any fuel. Quote, after I told teacher Prometheus about this, he was silent for a long time. Then tell me the fire of the whole earth. They were all concentrated in the holy torch of Olympus, and the earth lost its light and warmth. Quote, after listening to Chiron's narration, Poros was not too surprised. Just asked, so teacher, did he go to Olympus to steal fire? Chiron nodded hesitantly. Actually, it hasn't been long. Teacher, why are you so impulsive? At least wait a little longer. Poros heaved a long sigh. I stood still and thought for a while. He seemed to have figured out what to do. First, he took out a bag from his body and threw it to Chiron. This bag contains Cerberus. Brother, please go to the underworld. Give it to the goddess Hecate, the vice lord of the underworld, and tell her to go back to the ocean to see her mother. Quote, Chiron was puzzled. Poros suddenly took out a pair of pen and paper at this moment. Write a note, seal it, and hand it to Chiron. Give this note to her too, and ask her to stop by the Sea Emperor's temple when she visits her mother. Retell the above words to the Sea Emperor for me. Quote, Chiron nodded. At this time, Poros suddenly took out a smooth silver car. Just jump on it. Brother, where are you going? Olympus, staring at the far sky in the most central direction of the world. Poros replied quietly. The next moment, the car of the void with smooth lines. There was a soft light suddenly, and the surrounding space was distorted for a moment. Under Chiron's surprised eyes, Poros disappeared without a trace, including the person and the car. Is that Mount Olympus? I used the car of the void to jump over the space, saving a lot of time. Should be able to stop him in time. Staring at the majestic mountain that goes straight into the clouds not far away. Poros took a deep breath. Quickly put the car of the void away. He first took out the fool's mask, put it on your face. A gloom enveloped him, and he suddenly became one shrouded in a cloak. A pitch-black figure that could not be seen at all. That's right, with the addition of shadow of no shadow, it will be even more secure. Taking a look at himself, Poros cast shadow of no shadow. The whole person shrouded in the pitch-black cloak suddenly seemed invisible. Only then did he approach the immortal mountain cautiously. The foot of Mount Olympus. It is a lush garden full of flowers. Many beautiful nymphs are laughing and playing there. Poros walked past them. No one noticed. From their cheerful expressions, Poros also heaved a sigh of relief. If Prometheus has stolen the fire, or was discovered, then the whole Olympus must fall into martial law. It is impossible to keep these nymphs happily playing here. Quickly across the foot of the mountain, Poros saw a group of golden human beings turned into god servants after death. Under the leadership of several gods, they are patrolling and discussing from time to time. Listen closely. Recently, His Majesty the God King, why do you want us to step up our patrols? I don't know, it seems to be guarding against something. Master Ares, who was imprisoned before, has just been released. Responsible for guarding Olympus. Quote, hey, it's not good who is responsible, why must it be Lord Ares? Isn't he being held in good confinement the greatest responsibility to Olympus? Quote. Their words made Poros' eyes twinkle. Zeus really expected that someone would come to steal the fire, so he stepped up his defense. Fortunately, with the wisdom of teacher Prometheus, if you are not sure, you should take it lightly. But Ares is actually in charge of guarding Olympus. How short is Zeus's men? Quote. I made a complaint. Poros continued on his way to the top of Mount Olympus. Along the way, I encountered many gods. Among them, there are many middle gods and upper gods. There is even a main god. Fortunately, none of them discovered the ability of Poros. The sacred torch of Olympus is in charge of the sun god Helios. Let's take a look around the sun temple first. After observing for a while, Poros found the direction of the sun temple. Chapter 51. Advertisement. Helios, the sun god, and his sister, Semen, the moon goddess. They are the sons and daughters of Hyperion, the god of the sky, and Ea, the goddess of light. After the Titan court collapsed, because it is responsible for the rising and falling of the important sun and moon, it brings light and warmth to the earth. Helios and Semen, not only not like most Titans, imprisoned in Tartarus, or forced into seclusion. Instead, in the new Olympus court, obtain a low status. The Temple of the Sun is located on the left side of Mount Olympus, on a smooth cliff. Whenever the sun rises in the morning, Helios will drive his iconic sun chariot. Get the fire from the torch of Olympus and start the chariot. Let the sun's brilliance burn. And he drives the divine chariot, driving in the vast sky. He will not return until evening or dusk. Instead, my sister, the goddess of the moon, drives the moon chariot and drives in the sky. These two gods are also the busiest gods in Olympus. Other gods either seek pleasure or have a feast every day. Just this pair of brothers and sisters, for tens of thousands of years. Life is very regular, working hard every day, and never resting. It took a lot of effort to get a general understanding of the distribution of the major temples on Mount Olympus. Go through the levels. When Poros came to the Temple of the Sun, it was already night. Semen, the goddess of the moon, drives a chariot of the moon with soft light. Drive slowly in the dark night sky. The sun chariot was parked on the cliff in front of the sun temple. Helios, the sun god, rested early in the temple. After all, tomorrow will repeat 12 hours of boring work. This sun god car seems a bit weird. Quietly approach the temple of the sun. Poros's eyes were suddenly attracted by the parked sun chariot. I was about to approach the past and observe it with mystical eyes. Suddenly, he had a spiritual sensation. Suddenly found, in the dark night, there was a slightly familiar figure. Sneakingly came to the side of the sun chariot. Although the other party covered up, he covered his body with a hood-style artifact. But under the mysterious eye, Poros saw his true face in an instant. Apollo. Poros called out the other person's name in his heart in surprise. This is taking advantage of the night, quietly. Concealing his identity, he sneaked closer to the figure of the sun god chariot. It is one of the 12 main gods of Olympus. Advertisement. Apollo, the god of light known for his elegance and beauty. Poros hides himself well, under his dark watchful gaze. Apollo, who wrapped himself up tightly, carefully observed the surrounding area for a long time. After making sure there are no problems around, quickly slipped into the huge sun chariot. Seeing his quick movements, Poros couldn't help but ponder. Looking at this, it shouldn't be the first time for him. But why did Apollo want to play the idea of the sun chariot? Quote, when he was wondering, in the sun chariot in the distance, there was a sudden kicking sound. Then in Poros' astonished eyes, first Apollo was forced out of it. Immediately afterwards, another figure jumped out quickly. That's teacher Prometheus. Poros was taken aback. Immediately reacted. Prometheus, who tried to steal the fire, also wanted to come to the temple of the sun to investigate first. Sneak into the sun car early. Unexpectedly, when diving in, Apollo also got in. So the two guys with a guilty conscience. Naturally, they fought directly inside. Not good. Poros cursed inwardly. The figure rushed towards Prometheus in the distance. And at this time, the sound of the door of the sun god car being kicked open immediately alarmed the sun temple next to it. Who? Wearing a golden robe, curly hair all over his head, he is the burly sun god Helios. Suddenly flew out of the temple. Make a huge roar. Teacher, don't resist. Under shadow of no shadow, Poros quickly came to the chariot of the sun. Grab Prometheus quickly. Apply the effect of shadow of no shadow to him as well. When being grabbed by the arm unconsciously, Prometheus was horrified. What's going on tonight? Enter the sun car to investigate, and for no reason encounter another god who broke in. Under tension, they fought. The result alarmed Helios. Now there is an invisible man hiding beside him. Fortunately, he soon recognized Poros' voice. Only then did I feel relieved. Let shadow without shadow. The effect, acting on him. Advertisement. The two concealed their breath and hid aside. When Helios rushed out of the temple of the sun, he only saw Apollo on the other side. Immediately chased the other side. You can't run away. Apollo, who was running wildly in the night, was very depressed. There are obviously two people, why are you chasing me alone? He is fast. In the blink of an eye, he was about to leave the range of the sun temple. At this time in the dark, Poros rolled his eyes. Secretly exerted its own opportunity, power, aiming at the front of Apollo. Give him the opportunity to have an intimate contact with a stone. The next moment, Apollo was fleeing rapidly. He looked at his feet in astonishment. He tripped and fell to the ground with a crash. Immediately caught by Helios behind him, he tore off the hidden divine clothes on his body. It really is you, Apollo. You coveted my sun car again. Seeing the other person's appearance clearly, Helios roared angrily. Apollo, it's him. Prometheus next to Poros was a little surprised. Poros motioned him to stabilize his emotions and not show any traces. At this time, Apollo was captured by Helios. After the initial shock, he also quickly returned to his usual elegance and calmness. He scanned the direction of the sun god chariot behind him. After finding that there was no one there, after thinking about it, a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of his mouth. Patting the dust off his body, he said to Helios, I passed by here, wanting to see the internal structure of the sun car. Accidentally broke a piece of your car door, are you still reluctant? Quote. He actually blamed everything on himself. No mention was made of the fact that there was another person in the car. Prometheus and Poros met eyes. I don't quite understand why Apollo did what he did. There was a lot of movement just now, let's leave first. Poros said after pondering for a moment. Prometheus nodded and pointed in a direction. The two walked carefully towards the back mountain of Olympus. At this moment, Helios' angry voice came from behind. Apollo, I don't believe your sophistry. How can you be so tightly wrapped up along the way? For so long, you and your sister have coveted my and Semon's chariot. If the God King didn't give it to you, you wanted to steal it. Fortunately, I found it. Let's go to the palace of the God King and ask His Majesty the God King to comment. Helios, let me go. Whoever wants to steal your magic car, I'll just drop by and take a look, at most without telling you first. It's tightly wrapped because I like to wear it when I go out at night, can you control it? Quote. Advertisement. The noisy voice of the two gods became louder and louder. Soon the gods of the entire Olympus were attracted. In the end, the two still went to Zeus. At this time, Prometheus and Poros hid in a remote corner of Olympus early. This is the place where I was going to build a temple for me. Later, I didn't choose to serve in Olympus, so I was abandoned, so let's stay here for a while. Quote. Pointing to the secluded hill in front of him, Prometheus took a breath and sat directly on the ground. Poros sat down with him. Teacher, you are too reckless this time. Even if you want to steal the fire, you have to wait until I go back to discuss it. Quote. Prometheus smiled wryly. You have been away for so long and haven't come back. Our God's view of time is not mortal. Do anything you want and you can do it for decades. I can afford to wait, but the human beings who have lost their fire on the earth can't afford to wait. Quote. Poros was taken aback. Then you completely disregarded your own safety just for them. Even if you stole the fire, you will never escape the punishment of Zeus afterwards. Maybe he just wants you to steal the fire, so that he can deal with you in a name. Only then did all the fire seeds on the earth be collected. Quote. Of course I understand, but human beings are my creation. It is also the crystallization of the results of my search for truth. I can't just sit and watch them lose their spark and turn into beasts. Quote. Lying on the ground, Prometheus quietly stared at the bright moonlight in the sky. Poros fell silent. He's generally more sensible. Apart from his sister, few things make him act sensually. Including the revenge against Zeus, it is also step by step. Wait for the strength to accumulate enough before proceeding. Like Prometheus, he is obviously very intelligent and can see everything clearly, but he is still trapped in sensibility. He doesn't quite understand. He believes that people can have emotions, but they should not be swayed by emotions and lose their due wisdom. Teacher, without you, even if those humans regain the fire, they will always become ants at the mercy of the gods. Prometheus smiled. Isn't there still you? I have long believed that you will definitely become the greatest king of the gods. At that time, the world will usher in a new era. Under your rule, gods and humans will live in harmony. Quote. Oh, teacher, I'm not as good as you think. Quote. Poros stood up, facing the moonlight. Slowly said. So this time, you have to listen to me. Advertisement. Under the bright moonlight, Prometheus raised his thick bearded chin. After a moment of silence, he nodded and said, Okay, I'll listen to you. What's your plan? Poros turned to face him and asked back. Teacher, you should tell me about your original plan first. My original plan. It's actually really easy. Looking in the direction of the sun temple in the distance, Prometheus narrated in a low voice. Zeus concentrated all fire in the holy torch of Olympus. That thing is a symbol of the divine court, and the eternal holy fire represents the eternal divine court. Except Zeus, the king of gods. Only Helios, who needs to use the holy fire to start the chariot of the sun every day, can enter. Quote. So I plan to sneak into the sun god car first. Wait until tomorrow when Helios takes out the fire from the holy torch and drives out of Olympus. Then raid Helios inside and take away the tinder on the sun chariot halfway. Quote. But I don't want to meet. Hearing this, Poros couldn't help frowning. Teacher, why are you bothering so much? Wouldn't it be okay to sneak attack Helios directly when he was driving the sun chariot across the sky? Quote. No, you don't know the horror of the sun chariot. Prometheus shook his head, recalling the unusual feeling I had when I saw the sun chariot earlier. Poros asked, Isn't the sun chariot said to be an artifact created by the god of fire and craftsmen? What's so special about it? Prometheus suddenly laughed. How long has it been since Hephaestus was born? Is it when there is no him? Advertisement. Is there no sun in this world, just darkness? Quote. His words made Poros react. Yes, Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmen, was the son of Zeus and Hera. It was born when Olympus was established after the Titan War. Could it be the second generation of shunting, the first generation of shunting in the age of ignorance before this? Without the sun chariot he built, would there be no sun in the world? This is obviously impossible. The sun and the moon are the most important celestial bodies in the world. Without any one of them, the whole world will be on the verge of doomsday. About Hephaestus building the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon. The truth is, Hephaestus improved the original sun chariot and moon chariot, and others thought he built it. Quote, early when I was born. At that time, Uranus was still in power, and Helios and Selene had not yet been born. The chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon existed, and those who drove them at that time brought light to the earth. They are the parents of Helios and Selene, the god of the sky, Hyperion, and the goddess of light, Thea. Quote, the age of these two things can even be traced back to the beginning of the establishment of the first generation of gods. After 3 generations of shunting, the prophet who assisted the 2 generations of god kings showed his erudite knowledge at this moment. Pointing to the moon divine chariot that illuminates the whole world with bright light in the sky, he asked Poros, what kind of personality do you think is needed for such a radiance that shines in every corner of the world at the same time? Poros said concentratingly, when you reach the level of the main god, you can basically influence the whole world within your own authority. But low-level main gods can only maintain this state for a short time. Quote, even if a high-level Lord God like me influences the entire world with authority for a period of time, he will lose his strength. In an instant, he understood what Prometheus meant. The chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon. It can continuously emit light and heat that shines on the whole world for half a day, and it has not been tired for countless tens of thousands of years. Quote, advertisement, to such an extent, I'm afraid even the most top-notch main god can't do it. Prometheus nodded slowly. That's why I dare not attack Helios while the sun chariot is driving. Because the mighty power possessed by the sun chariot at that time almost surpassed that of the main god. So Apollo appeared in the sun chariot with the purpose of coveting the sun chariot. Poros thought of the Apollo he had just met. Prometheus nodded. I think it's the same. You don't think Apollo and Artemis are siblings? Is it similar to Helios and Selene in some way? Quote, the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon cannot be driven by any gods, they must meet the requirements. Otherwise, Zeus would not have always let Helios and Selene, the 2 titans who did not support him at the beginning, use it. Quote, but Apollo and Artemis should also have the potential to drive the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon. If Zeus hadn't been very worried about these 2, the same unfaithful sons and daughters. I believe Helios and Selene have already been replaced. Quote, but now it seems that Apollo has an idea of his own. Poros nodded. In fact, in the late Greek mythology, Apollo, Artemis siblings, and Helios, Selene siblings. It was gradually confused. Many people firmly believe that Apollo is the sun god in Greek mythology. It is represented in the future. He and Artemis successfully replaced the Helios brothers and sisters and won the 2 great chariots. Forget about these, let's discuss how to win the fire. Poros took out the mask and put it on his face again. Looking at the student who couldn't see the slightest original appearance in front of him, Prometheus was very surprised. You want to use this appearance to steal fire? That's right. No, I can't let you take this risk. You don't understand the sun chariot at all. Advertisement. Even Zeus didn't dare to face the power when it was activated. Quote, let me come, lend me your mask. Prometheus shook his head, trying to snatch the mask from Poros' face. Poros restrained his hand. Teacher, who told you that I was going to steal the fire from the sun car? Then you are going to. Prometheus was wondering. Poros suddenly looked at him seriously. Teacher, leave this matter to me. You have to leave Olympus now and do 2 things. What's the matter? Prometheus was a little confused. First thing, go to the ocean and find Poseidon. I guess Hecate has contacted him for us now. You take my shadow to go together. Quote, suddenly, a figure indistinguishable from a real person stepped out of Poros. This is the shadow body ability of the shadowless shadow. It can form a cohesive body that is consistent with the real body in appearance, breath, and even all aspects. But there is basically no shadow of combat effectiveness. So Poros solemnly reminded, my shadow body is very fragile, teacher, you must protect it well. Prometheus had understood something at this time. He nodded and asked, what about the second thing? In this place, arrange the root formation and try to improve it to the extreme. Because I may be here with Zeus in another capacity. Point to somewhere on a map. Under the moonlight, Poros's silver eyes are as bright as the stars. Fight head on. Advertisement. Prometheus finally listened to Poros. After he leaves Olympus, Poros thought it over again in his heart. The plan that was made after learning that Prometheus had come to Olympus to steal fire. After making sure there is nothing wrong, he stood there quietly. His silver eyes, as bright as stars, stared at the bright silver moon above. Since coming to this world, know your identity. He's been fighting to defeat the man standing on top of the gods. A drawing of fate. Let yourself and him be alone in the world at the same time. So many years of preparation. Now, it's finally time to face him for real. This time will be the beginning. Start the beginning of your own era. Taking a deep breath, Poros settled on a discovery. Slowly come to a magnificent and sacred palace on Mount Olympus. The top of the palace, engraved with its name. The Temple of Wisdom. This is Athena's palace in Olympus. After a few glances, Poros casts unseen shadow, quietly passed the gate of the temple and followed the road to the interior of the sister temple. It took a while. Poros found the apse where Athena lived. In the dense night, through the window, he saw a familiar graceful figure, sitting by the candlelight and quietly turning the pages of a book. Not as dignified and elegant as usual. Living alone, she has brilliant blonde hair and bright eyes full of wisdom. Concentrate on the book in your hand. The delicate and beautiful face is full of leisure and laziness that is rarely seen in ordinary times. Beside her, there is a young and beautiful goddess with pure white wings. Watching her quietly, the two talked and laughed from time to time. Poros waited quietly outside the window for a long time, until the goddess put her arms around her head and said with a sweet smile, "Athena, your insights are getting deeper and deeper. I think Father will like you very much." "Alas, I don't bother to think about it so much, just listen to your command and bring you victory." Quote, "As the daughter of the god of war strategy, you can't be so thoughtless." Athena smiled at her. The goddess with white wings pursed her lips and said with a smile, "Don't talk about it, you continue to read your book, I want to go back and have a good sleep." After she left, a while passed. Poros just entered quietly. Athena put down the book she had just finished reading. Stretched a little tiredly. "Sister, it's rare to see that you are not serious." Advertisement. The familiar voice suddenly came from the side, which made her face full of surprise. In dim light, she turned her head sideways. Slowly saw Poros with a smile on his lips. As if pondering for a moment, she calmly said, "Does it make you feel that my sister is not as dignified as you think?" "No, I think my sister is more charming like this." Poros approached with a bright smile. It was found that Athena was not wearing that glorious armor. It wasn't even the brilliant dress of everyday life. Yu has a tall and straight figure. He only wore a red robe that looked like tulle. Under the light of candles, it is particularly illuminating. Impressive for Poros. Feeling his gaze, Athena blushed for some reason. Soon he returned to normal, glared at him and said, "How long have you been here?" "It's been a while. Are you worried about being discovered by Nikki?" "In fact, she is a very trustworthy person. In the future, we can reveal a little part of our relationship to her." Quote, "Nikki is the beautiful goddess with white wings just now. The daughter of Pallas, the god of war and strategy, the brain of the Titans, and the goddess of victory who is well known in the gods. He is also Athena's obedient god and closest friend." Poros had heard of her and nodded slightly. Then Athena asked, "Earlier Helios clashed with Apollo, and all Olympus was alarmed. Were you there too?" Quote, "How did my sister guess that I was at the Sun Temple?" Athena smiled. "Since the fire was collected by Zeus in the holy torch, I expected that His Royal Highness Prometheus and you might have an idea about it in the Sun Chariot." Quote, "Apollo covets the Sun Chariot, and I have already noticed it. But with his abilities, he shouldn't have been caught by Helios. So I guess there is something hidden in it, and you came to me at this time." Quote, "Sister, you are smart, so do you know the news about the torch?" Athena frowned suddenly. "You don't want to play the idea of the Sun Chariot, but you want to enter the holy torch." Poros laughed. "If you want to do it, you have to do it with a big pen. The flame of Olympus symbolizes the eternal flame of the court of God. Then I want Zeus to watch the flame go out." Quote, Athena looked at him for a while, then bit her lips and said, "That's good, the Sun Chariot is also not less dangerous. But if you want to play the idea of the sacred torch, you must pay attention to the Hyperion couple, the gods of the sky who guard it. Hyperion, the god of the sky, and his wife Theia, the goddess of light, were once one of the 12 titans. They are the parents of Helios, the sun god, and Selene, the moon goddess. After the Titan War, the two men were hidden from the world and were invited by Zeus to be in charge of the holy torch together with his son Helios. Even among the gods, few people know about this. Quote, I know them, Poros said quietly, the so-called 12 titans. They are the 12 children of Uranus, the first god king, and Gaia, the earth mother. That is, the 12 main gods in the second generation of shunting. Among them, the second generation god King Cronus is the leader. Then there are the second generation of the Sea Emperor Arnolds, the goddess of justice Themis, and so on. Advertisement. The couple of the gods of the sky are not outstanding among them. Presumably, the level of divine power is only about the middle level of the main god. Athena reminded again at this time. In addition to the couple of the god of the sky, you should also pay attention to the fact that it is not far from the holy torch. The temple of goddess of destiny. The temple of goddess of destiny, as my sister said, is very weird and mysterious. Hidden behind a rock, Poros looked at the not far away, which looked like an Olympic torch. Huge and majestic, a fiery torch that burns forever. There are colorful and gorgeous flames inside, beating non-stop. And not far from the torch stand, a remote corner shrouded in shadow, impressively stands an ancient and mysterious temple. It gives people an inexplicable sense of depression. The temple of the goddess of fate is the temple where the 3 goddesses of fate live. It is also the most mysterious place in Olympus. Quote, I have been in Olympus for many years, and I have never seen these 3 mysterious goddesses. But from bits and pieces of legend, I found out that this is said to be the 3 Fates, the daughter of Zeus and Justice. Quote, the time of existence may be terrifyingly long. Recall what my sister said earlier. Various information about the 3 goddesses of fate. Poros couldn't help being more careful. Try to stay away from the temple of goddess of destiny, just cast your eyes on the holy torch. But I still couldn't help but be curious. I want to explore the secrets of this so-called temple of fate. Just as he restrained himself, suddenly, he saw that the eternally burning huge holy flame was on the platform. 2 figures emerged, a man and a woman. The male is a loose white robe. Middle-aged with curly hair and beard, tall and strong. The woman has the appearance of a woman in her 30s, with a simple and solemn white dress. Poros recognized it immediately. These 2 are Hyperion, the god of the sky, and Theia, the goddess of light. Before coming, Athena used wisdom and divine power. The appearance characteristics of these 2 gods. Presented to him. Are they going to the temple of goddess of destiny? Poros was surprised, because after appearing, the god couple of high altitude just carefully arranged something around the torch. Then they glanced at each other, quickly headed towards the mysterious temple of fate standing not far away. That cautious and subtle appearance seemed to be about to do something shady. This made Poros suddenly curious. I looked at it and didn't know what method was arranged. A holy torch burning alone in the night. He hesitated. Use the shadow of no shadow to the extreme. Following them, they came to the temple of goddess of destiny. Through that eerie atmosphere. Advertisement. When the couple of the gods of the sky came, the ancient and vicissitudes of the gate of the temple of the goddess of destiny. A gap suddenly opened. Hyperion, Theia, come in. An old and mysterious husky female voice. Suddenly it sounded. The god of the sky couple quickly passed through the gap and entered very carefully. Little did they know, Poros was also following them. Enter this dark and mysterious palace curiously. I saw 3 weird goddesses, 1 old, 1 middle school and 1 young. 3 goddesses of fate. Poros silently called out the titles of these 3 people in his heart. And after the 2 of Hyperion entered, sitting in front of the spinning wheel, the eldest sister, the goddess of fate, holds scissors. Atropos, the old, wizened crone. A trace of doubt flashed in the cloudy eyes. He glanced at the door twice. She found nothing. Under the tense eyes of Poros, he pointed inside and said, Hyperion, Theia, you can go in and meet him now. Thank you, noble goddess of fate. The god of the sky couple saluted the 3 sisters very respectfully. Then go to the depths of the temple of goddess of destiny. Poros did not dare to get close to the three goddesses of fate, and followed the two gods of the sky to enter. Soon in the endless darkness, the magnificent and thick portal painted with the boundless starry sky appeared in his eyes. This portal. Poros worked hard to keep his breath from coming down. When Prometheus made that prophecy to that so-called perfect woman in box, according to the known Greek myths and legends, he had guessed. But for the so-called portal, he has no direction at all. Until now he saw it. The portal is hidden in the Temple of Fate. Mysterious, treacherous, magnificent, terrifying. The sound of knocking and impact can be heard from time to time, like something is about to come out of it. But a tall figure covered in blood, like a sky, was locked like a door bolt, bound in the crack of the door. Prevent the things inside from breaking through the crack of the door. What is the history of this door? What is the identity of this sky-like figure? When Poros was surprised, the high-altitude couple walking in front of him. Suddenly he knelt down in front of the sky-like figure in front of the portal. With a low voice, he said, "Father God, we have come to see you." The father god of the god couple in the sky, isn't that advertisement? When Poros was shocked, the dark and gloomy temple of the goddess of destiny, under the heavy light and shadow. In the grand and huge portal, a tall figure like the sky is bound. A face covered in blood. He opened his eyes coldly. It was like layers of curtains of the sky were lifted. Heavy pressure densely enveloped the surrounding oppressive atmosphere. Makes the heart pound. The tall figure on the door made a low noise, accompanied by a terrifying spell, lingering and resounding. Hyperion, Thea, the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon are still in your hands. The altitude god couple responded quickly. Father God, the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon are with the two children of me and Thea, Helios and Selene. That's good. The cores of these two sacred vehicles were made by the dual sources of the sun and the moon after I split with the source of light. It's a pity that you are not wise enough to comprehend the mystery of the root. Otherwise, even if the personality is only the sixth level of the main god, you can absorb them and be promoted to the original. The potential of your sons and daughters is not as good as yours. What a waste of rare root power. Quote, the tall figure regretted. Hiding not far behind the god of the sky couple, Poros was very surprised to hear this. It turns out that the god chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon were created by the power of a split root. No wonder it's so special. Quote, but compared to the identity of the person in front of me, this is not so important. Poros looked again at the tall, blood-covered figure chained to the grand portal. Who can imagine such a god who looks very embarrassed? Once single-handedly ended the age of ignorance. Suppressed Gaia, the original god who is still his mother, and let her become his queen. Single-handedly created the first generation of gods and ruled the universe. The first god king, the god of the sky, Uranus. In the last years of the first Shenting, during the famous rebellion, the Earth Mother Gaia encouraged her youngest son, Cronus, to attack his father, Uranus. With a black sickle, the connection between heaven and earth is separated. Then lead 11 brothers and sisters to end Wang Quan of the first generation of gods. The god of the sky, who was severely injured, is a miracle doctor. Whether he is alive or dead, his specific destination. It has always been one of the greatest unsolved mysteries among the gods. And now the answer is revealed. Uranus, the first god king who once ruled the entire world. After being deprived of the throne, he was locked firmly in the deepest part of the temple of the goddess of destiny. In front of this weird and mysterious portal. What is the origin of the temple of goddess of destiny, and what is this portal? Poros has many doubts in his heart, but he dared not get too close to the portal. Advertisement. The strength of the first god king Uranus is definitely not inferior to Zeus today. It is not the original, but it has the mighty power to subdue the Earth Mother. And this portal is even more mysterious and terrifying. A little carelessness, something alarmed. That would be bad. Today's detection is enough, let's take it slow. Thinking of this, he was more careful in maintaining the state of shadow of no shadow. Bound to the portal, Uranus is like a boundless sky. Attention is also on the two children in front of them. He never thought that outsiders would sneak into this mysterious and terrifying temple of fate. That's ridiculous. The strength of the three goddesses outside may not be called extremely powerful. but the mighty power of fate that envelops everything. What existence can hide itself from them? Staring at the two of Hyperion, he snorted coldly and said, I asked you to investigate things about Tartarus, how are you doing? The altitude god couple lowered their heads. Father God, the realm of the Lord of the Abyss is really too unpredictable. We've tried sending too many people in over the years, but no one has ever been able to come out. Quote. After Hyperion said in embarrassment. Thea, the goddess of light, also advised. Father, just look away. Cronus has suffered the same fate as yours. Being imprisoned in Tartarus was the best punishment for him. You don't need to try your best to get him out and take revenge. Shut up, you two are not qualified to say such things to me. Uranus stared at them with red eyes. A boundless pressure as vast as the sky shrouded in astonishment. The pressure made the two of Hyperion tremble. Poros' expression also changed. He is in the state of shadow of no shadow. It's just that the breath and presence are hidden. But the divine body is still real. If you are shrouded by this pressure, you will undoubtedly be discovered. He gritted his teeth and stepped back quickly. The three goddesses of fate who have been sitting quietly before the spinning wheel behind. Someone said indifferently, Uranus, this is not a place for you to be presumptuous. Suddenly an invisible strange force. Pull the chains on the portal that bind Uranus tightly. In the clattering sound, Uranus let out a painful roar. The vast pressure like the sky quickly shrank back. Poros breathed a sigh of relief. The more careful cat is in the corner of this temple. Atropos, Lachesis, Croter, this door will be open sooner or later, you can't keep me trapped. Red eyes. Uranus stared at the three goddesses in white robes sitting in front of the spinning wheel, his eyes full of hatred. Advertisement. Croter, the youngest of the three goddesses of fate, looked at him coldly. With your bad temper, so what if you go out, maybe you will be sent back here soon. You. Uranus stared furiously at the face of the maiden goddess of fate. The high-altitude god couple below hurriedly comforted them. Father, don't be angry. In fact, it is not completely fruitless, the two of us inquired. There is a man who was in the abyss, and now he has come out. Uranus glanced at them. Who? Father of 100 demons, Typhon. The Hyperions replied. This is a titan with 100 snake heads, taller than your brother Uriah. It is said that he is the heir of his mother and the lord of the abyss, and he walked out of Tartarus shortly after Cronus and the others were imprisoned. This is the only known life that can emerge from the abyss. Son of Gaia and Tartarus. Uranus couldn't help but snorted coldly. Then he ordered coldly, since this is the case, then you go and catch this Typhon for me, and interrogate me about the abyss. A wry smile appeared on the couple's faces. Father, you think too highly of us. That Typhon's strength is probably not much inferior to yours. We observed him once from a distance, but we were almost swallowed by him. Quote. Uranus stared at them coldly. Then why don't you bring the chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon? The altitude god couple shook their heads. Father God, the current god king outside has always been very worried about us. If we bring Zong's sun chariot and moon chariot without authorization, he will definitely stop us. Useless thing, a son of Cronus, frightened you like this. Uranus scolded endlessly. The Hyperions could only bow their heads and remain silent. This picture makes Poros very strange. Uranus, the first god king, is certainly famous. But now trapped on that portal, it is also a toothless tiger. Hyperion and Thea, why are you so afraid of him? And it was Cronus who led the rebellion and overthrown Uranus by the 12 titans. Speaking of which, these two are also participants. Shouldn't this be the attitude in front of Uranus? In addition, what role did the three goddesses of fate play in this? Poros' question could not be answered. Uranus scolded the god of the sky couple again. Tell them to keep an eye on Typhon first. Hyperion and Thea told Uranus some recent events. Then leave. Poros hurriedly followed closely. At this time, they heard the sisters of the three goddesses of destiny speak suddenly. Under the giant net woven by fate, Typhon was destined to appear in front of us on the last day of his life. Uranus, if you promise us a request. Advertisement. At that time, we will help you find out information about the abyss. Quote. Otherwise, you won't have any chance to get half a word from Typhon. Because he is destined by fate to fall before you leave here. Quote. The three goddesses of fate, each saying a sentence, seemed to have consciously eaten Uranus to death. The first-generation god-king, who was tightly bound, frowned tightly with blood-stained brows. Haven't you three been working with the son of Kronos? I, the king of gods who lost my position, have long been abandoned by you. The three goddesses of fate replied lightly. We had a great time working with Zeus, we even helped him lose weight. Under the trajectory of fate, the practice of life of the son of Tis, who was supposed to replace him. But now he is becoming more and more ambitious, and he refuses to cooperate obediently. So we need to make another preparation. It is the sincerity of our cooperation to let the Hyperion couple come to you from time to convey news from the outside world. What the three of them said made Poros' face stiffen. I couldn't help cursing in my heart. I said that the original body is destined to become the king of the gods, but without me, the original body must be dead. It turned out that it was you three who used power for personal gain and did it secretly. Quote. Urano, Atropos, Lachesis, and Croter, you all keep saying that fate is doomed, but in reality, you are interfering with fate. Fate is not a static thing, but a general direction. As long as the general direction remains the same, small differences in details are not a problem. The meaning of the existence of the three of us is to prune the branches of our destiny and maintain the backbone of our destiny. Quote. The three goddesses of fate replied lightly. In the end, did Uranus agree to their conditional exchange? What kind of conditions? Poros couldn't hear it. Because the god of the sky and his wife have already walked out. After they left, the gate of the temple of fate slowly closed. If you don't take the opportunity to leave, you won't have the opportunity. Following Hyperion, Theia, Poros quickly walked out of the temple of fate. Watching the night outside, he was in a trance. The impact of everything in the temple of goddess of destiny can be described as astonishing. After calm down, he remembered what he was going to do. Continue to follow the two titans closely. Along the way, the high-altitude god and his wife looked very dignified and didn't say a word. It seems like just about everything in Temple of Fate. It also makes them uneasy. Until returning to the torch of the holy fire, remove the enchantment of divine power that was arranged when leaving. The goddess of light, Theia, couldn't help but said, "How long are we going to obey God the Father like this? I don't know, I've had enough of this kind of life." The god of the high sky sat on the ground angrily, and glanced at the holy torch that was burning violently beside him. When I was about to say something, his face suddenly changed. "You, who are you?" Advertisement. The husband screams. The goddess of light, Theia, was first astonished, and then looked sideways in surprise. The night is about to pass. In the darkest thick dawn, the gorgeous holy flame was burning fiercely, and a strange figure appeared out of nowhere. He wore a thick long cloak blacker than night, darker than death. The slender figure was completely wrapped in darkness. Only the face is exposed. It was covered by a black and white mask with dark colors, twisted and weird. Even the eyes are shrouded in layers of darkness. Can't tell the color. Just quietly staring through the two holes in the black and white distorted mask. Boom. Chang'e was shocked by a loud noise. Husband Hyperion just called out, that strange figure shrouded in a cloak and a mask. The fist has already hit the husband's abdomen. Caught off guard, the husband spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was like a kite with a broken string, falling towards him. Theia screamed. He rushed forward and caught her husband. His eyes flickered. The figure in the cloak in front of her flashed through the void like a black line, and appeared behind her in the blink of an eye. Boom. Another punch. The turbulent divine power carries Chiron strength. It hit the back of the goddess of light hard. Theia with Hyperion, the god of the sky, in her arms. They were all sent flying into the distance. Shadow of no shadow is used for sneak attacks, and it is indeed a top-notch, magical technique. Otherwise, you can't use two iconic artifacts and authority. It is almost impossible to easily knock down a veteran titan who is a 6th-level main god and a 5th-level main god. Poros thought to himself, a figure shrouded in a cloak formed by the mask of Fool. Quickly skimming ahead of the Olympic torch, a fiery invisible force loomed in front of him. Sure enough, besides the Hyperion couple, there are other guardians here. Poros was as calm as water, stopping before triggering that power first. Under the distorted mask of interlaced black and white, The eye of mystery activates. The eyes that see everything through the two holes in the eye sockets of the mask. Stare around. I saw countless laws of light and shadow alternating. Like the X-rays in sci-fi movies, it forms a complex protective net and runs across the front. Poros is as nimble as an ape. Quickly shuttle through the gaps in this invisible law enchantment. When Hyperion and the couple, who were knocked into the air in the rear, tried their best to stand up. His face was full of stupefaction. How is it possible, even for us? It is impossible to break through the sacred fire barrier without using the secret key to close the barrier. Quote, what is the origin of this person? When the two murmured, Poros has successfully passed through the holy fire barrier and came to the huge torch. Advertisement. I saw his right hand shrouded under the cloak gently stretched out. Aim your palm at the burning Olympian flame. The 5 fingers are bluffing. A mass of gorgeous flames was absorbed into his palm. Condensed into a brilliant ball of fire. Put down the tinder. Hyperion and Thea yelled, want to rush to stop. But helplessly, there is a holy fire enchantment guarding in front of them. If they want to pass through, they must first close it with a secret key. When the two hurriedly took out the secret key, the strange figure shrouded under the cloak above suddenly let out an indifferent laugh under the mask. Black and white intertwined, twisted masks like a whirlpool, facing them in the dark. Remember my name is Fire Thief. Holding the concentrated fire in one hand, he raised his other hand heavily, pouring the powerful divine power of the main god at the rear to the holy torch. There was only a bang. The whole Mount Olympus shook. The Hyperion couple looked horrified. That symbolizes the eternal flame of Olympus, which is said to be inextinguishable. The huge torch exploded dully. Countless sparks fly into the sky, like a gorgeously blooming firework. The spreading smog filled the entire sky of this immortal mountain with dust. And at the same time as the rumbling explosion sounded, the treacherous figure who called himself the Fire Stealer held a brilliant fire in one hand. Quickly dodged countless fragments from the explosion of the holy torch, going beyond Olympus like a meteor. Thief, you can't escape. The two Titan gods Hyperion and Thea roared angrily. Regardless of the injury just attacked, the couple pushed their powers to the limit. First, there are layers of invisible celestial bodies, blocking the surrounding void. Then there was a burst of blazing light, like sharp javelins. Shushu flew out from Thea, the goddess of light. The offensive of the two Titan gods has just taken shape. Poros fleeing in the sky, but turned back quickly. Hyperion and Thea were surprised. His eyes fell under the black cloak. The mask with interlaced black and white stripes, twisted like a vortex, suddenly emitted a faint light. The whole world has become dizzy. Unconsciously, they revoke the divine calendar that had just been issued. The Mask of Fool, issued by 200,000 reputation points. Wearing it on the body can not only cover up the identity, but also change the breath. Another important role is to fool others and lower the opponent's IQ. There was a smile on the corner of his mouth when the high-altitude god couple was affected by the Mask of Foolishness. Poros sped through the void, heading beyond Olympus. Just when he was not far from the foot of Mount Olympus, there was loud shouting in front of him. Thief, you cannot escape from the great Ares. He wears solid armor and holds a large sword. Advertisement. Ares, the tall, mighty and domineering god of war. Since he was just released to be the guard of Olympus, he is very conscientious. After the movement of the holy torch, be the first to come. With a swing of the great sword, terrible blood burned all over his body. The ferocious aura of war pervades madness. But just as he was full of confidence, when he swung his sword and slashed to Poros, his eyes froze suddenly. Under the pitch-black cloak, there are twisted lines and constantly rotating lights and shadows. Let his low intelligence drop to 0. I want to do what? Come. When this idea came to his mind intermittently, the dark figure of Poros shrouded under the cloak came to his back early. He kicked hard. Boom. Heavily armored sword, majestic god of war. It fell into the cliff below like a falling stone, causing the ground to shake. Solved god of war. Poros speed up. The figure quickly ran towards the foot of Mount Olympus. Many gods who were disturbed in the rear shouted and chased after him. But the distance is too far to catch Poros at all. In the end, He could only watch helplessly, the mysterious figure wearing a cloak in front of him, carrying the brilliant fire, leave Olympus. Fortunately at this time, grasping the power of travel, Hermes, the fastest messenger of the gods, flew out. Seeing the mysterious figure of stealing fire, flying out of the range of Olympus, he jumps a few spaces, swipe the ground and follow. He got into the grove ahead. Hey, compare your speed with me, do you admit it? The messengers of the gods sneered. Prepare to catch the thief who broke into Olympus and stole the fire in the grove outside Olympus. But when he came to the woods full of confidence, there was only a lingering silver light flashing away, the figure in the cloak that should be there, completely missing. Hermes couldn't help but stay where he was in a daze. Fortunately there is a void cart, otherwise it would have been captured by Hull Scone. The speed of the gods is the first. It really isn't for bragging. If you get entangled, it will be difficult to get out. He took a long breath. Poros held the brilliant fire in his palm. Stop the void cart. Now he was back outside Athens. After a day and night, Alpha, Beta and others are still carrying many humans. He prayed in front of the altar with a numb expression. But the prayers are getting quieter. The crowd below also gradually became hoarse. He lowered his head and sat there. When you are hungry, you take out bloody lean meat and uncooked grains, and stuff them directly into your mouth. Many people have sickness on their faces. Some screamed while clutching their stomachs, some fainted with a splitting headache, some were itchy all over their bodies. Advertisement. In a world without fire, in addition to barbarism, it is accompanied by disease. Most of the previous million people lost most of it because of raw food and disease. Seeing more and more compatriots die, the two human leaders Alpha and Beta finally collapsed in front of the altar in despair. Looking at the sky, Alpha choked up and said, "Gods, have you really abandoned humans?" At this moment, a flat voice sounded in his ear. "Human, are you longing for tinder?" Alpha, Beta, etc. looked in surprise. On the high altar, at some point, a mysterious figure shrouded in a pitch-black cloak stood up. His face wore a strange mask full of distorted lines. But more attractive to all the humans present, it was the palm of his right hand that he raised, that mass of beating splendor. Fire. All humans are excited. They jump up, looking forward to the mysterious figure on the altar. "Are you sent by the gods to save us?" Alpha, Beta, etc. asked choked up. The figure under the cloak shook his head. "I am not, the king of the gods who extinguished all burning flames on the earth. No god can resist his will, not even your father god Prometheus. But I stole fire from heaven. Let this land be rekindled with light and heat. I am the fire thief." In the faint voice, the figure under the cloak faced the vast land. "Drop the brilliant flame that dances in your hand." For a moment, in the cheers of humans, the whole earth, all combustibles, both became able to burn again. The warm and bright flames danced under the vast sky. They were full of excitement and looked at the altar with grateful eyes, only to find the mysterious figure that had just been shrouded under the cloak has disappeared. On steep and high mountains, Poros took off the mask of foolishness from his face. The clear silver eyes stared at the earth rising from below, full of hopeful gentle firelight. He muttered in his mouth, "It turns out that you can get fame points without your real identity. It's really rare to see an increase of more than 100,000 in a short period of time. But the next gift package will cost 3 million. There was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. He cast his eyes on the palm of his right hand. There was still a ray of gorgeous flames there, beating warmly and brilliantly. The flame of Olympus, Wangquan, which symbolizes the eternity of Zeus. Fire thief. What has been stolen is never just the tinder of civilization. It is even more important to take Wangquan of Olympus from the hands of the king of the gods. Under the bitter cold wind, Poros tightly held the torch in his hand, looking up at the endless sky. "Zeus, I'm waiting for you here." Advertisement. When the booming explosion surprised Zeus from sweet dreams, he casually threw away the white tender arm hooking his neck. It caused a beautiful goddess beside her to lose her voice in astonishment. The king of the gods was angry at first. Then his majestic face turned livid. "What is going on? Overnight, such a turmoil occurred in my Olympus." The angry voice of the god king made the space freeze in shock. Not long after, the dusty Hermes rushed in. Father God, someone broke into the holy fire platform and stole the fire. Also, I destroyed the holy torch. The envoys of the gods finished reporting in fear. Zeus, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, had a face as cold as ice. He gave Hermes a cold look. Zeus growled, "Do I need you to tell me the news? The sky is full of dust from the holy torch, can't I see it?" Hermes lowered his head in horror. Zeus picked up a long robe and put it on his body. The gloomy gaze penetrated the building of the temple of the King of God. Staring at the dusty Olympus sky, lightning flickered all over his body instantly. One night, just one night, Wang Quan of Olympus has been desecrated. The King of Gods thought back to last night. He told Ares, who had just been released, to change to patrol. Best to catch Prometheus, who might come to Olympus to steal fire. In this way, I can directly sanction that divine court prophet before I can grasp the plans of the 17th human being. Although that person had helped him defeat Cronus. He is his half-teacher. But Métis can swallow it himself. Dare to stand in front of Wang Quan, an old guy who should have gotten out a long time ago, what is it? Then he called a newly discovered young goddess, who was about to have a good time. Unexpectedly, there was a conflict between Apollo and Helios. Apollo coveted the chariot of the sun, but was discovered by Helios. "Hey, my stupid kawaii. If you and your sister are willing to be obedient, why did I put such important things as the sun chariot and the moon chariot?" Advertisement. Responsible to two outsiders. But you are not listening. Then I would rather give them to Helios than let you have them. After scolding Apollo for a meal, the king of the gods fell asleep with the young and beautiful goddess. Not to mention, it's still fun for young people. Hera will put on a face. There is no such style. Sooner or later, she will be abolished as the queen of God, and replaced by a young and considerate. In such thoughts, the king of the gods is fast asleep. Then, the king of the gods has awakened. His Olympus was raided. The tinder was stolen, and the torch was blown up. The holy fire, which symbolizes the immortality of the court, is extinguished. He stared at Hermes for a while, until the envoys of the gods felt hairy. Zeus said in a low voice, "Who do you think did it?" The messenger of the gods reported. According to the witnesses of Hyperion, the couple, and Ares. It was a mysterious man covered in a black cloak and wearing a strange mask, who claimed to be a fire thief. I followed him for a while, but he ran away. Fire thief. Zeus frowned. Hermes continued. In addition to these, I know from the Hyperion couple and the situation where Ares played against him. The mask on the opponent's face has the ability to influence thinking. Influencing thinking, this is somewhat similar to the characteristics of wisdom and authority. Zeus suddenly pondered. Father God, do you doubt Athena? Why, she must not be suspected. Hermes shook his head and said, Father God, I believe that if Athena were to do such a thing, she would not show such obvious flaws. Zeus sneered, stared into the distance and said, Prometheus is called a prophet, and his main authority is foreknowledge. But in fact, it also has some authority in the field of wisdom. Quote, with the intuitive purpose of stealing fire, Prometheus is indeed the most suspicious. Since the target has been locked, there must be no mercy. The majesty of Olympus cannot be challenged by anyone. Advertisement. Zeus growled angrily. Actually, whether it is related to Prometheus or not, none of it matters to him. His purpose of collecting all the fires of the earth. This is to lure Prometheus to the bait. There is a good reason to sanction this prophet who has made contributions to the establishment of the divine court. Although the process is not satisfactory now, but if the purpose is achieved, it is acceptable. He immediately gave the order. Go, find out where Prometheus is now. Zeus had just finished giving orders. Not long after, a god walked up to him hesitantly. Zeus frowned. There is a result, why don't you say it soon? Then the god tremblingly said, reporting to God King, someone has just reported the details of our deployment in the ocean. Just yesterday, His Majesty Poseidon hosted a grand banquet for Prometheus, the prophet of the divine court. Quote. Zeus' face suddenly changed. At this moment, Hermes asked hurriedly, what about that student of Prometheus, Poros? The god replied, follow Prometheus and have a banquet at the Emperor of the Sea. Impossible, this is impossible. Zeus and Hermes stared at each other. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, the god hurriedly added. For the banquet last night, the sea emperor temporarily invited many sea gods. It is said that the prophet Prometheus and his disciples decided to help him fight against Pontus. His chances of dominating the ocean have greatly increased, and he is ready to go to war immediately. The news has now spread across the oceans. Quote, Olympus was stolen at dawn today, and their teachers and students went to the ocean last night. What a coincidence. Hermes sneered again and again, looking at Zeus. The latter also snorted coldly. At this time, another god came to report. Your Majesty, we have detected it. Athens, the gathering place of human beings, has been ignited everywhere. According to the investigation, it was the kindling seed given by a mysterious man wearing a black cloak and a distorted mask this morning. The man called himself the fire stealer. Quote, it's the fire thief again. Zeus was furious. A series of terrifying lightning bolts cruising densely in Temple Sea. Seeing that Hermes and the others were trembling with fear. Father, calm down. Advertisement. This is definitely a trick of Prometheus. Hermes remonstrated loudly. Zeus looked at him and murmured, yes, it must be his trick. When he mentioned the war, he gave me many such insidious schemes. I was able to defeat the strong with the weak, and defeated the mighty Titan gods. Take the whole world from Cronus. But now he dares to use such a trick to offend my Wang Quan. Who does he think he is? The roar of the king of the gods shook the entire Olympus. All the gods on the mountain trembled. After a long time, Zeus regained his composure. Slowly put on glorious and dazzling royal robes. Take out the lightning spear that keeps beating terrifying thunder. Eyes of beating lightning overlook the boundless land. No matter where he was yesterday, today I will make him pay the price. Wang Quan of Olympus, no one can provoke him. The gods obey, follow me to the ocean and capture Prometheus. The king of the gods gave an order. The gods of Olympus, big and small, flocked to gather. Themis, goddess of justice, Demeter, goddess of agriculture, Apollo, god of light, Athena, goddess of wisdom, and Artemis, goddess of hunting. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsman, Ares, the god of war, the three goddesses of grace, the three goddesses of timing. In a short period of time, there are dozens of main gods alone. There are countless other gods, big and small. They gathered and pressed towards the ocean one after another. Sitting in the sea emperor temple, Poseidon, who was still drinking freely. Feel this overwhelming powerful breath. His complexion couldn't help changing wildly, and he almost jumped up. With so many main gods, apart from the Titan war back then, when did such a battle happen? Zeus is crazy. Or do you want to use the guise of dealing with Prometheus, but actually want to get your hands on the ocean? Just when Poseidon's face changed. Sitting not far in front of him were Poros and Prometheus. His face was calm and unfazed. With a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, Poros got up and toasted him a glass of wine. Neptune, don't panic, it's all in my plan with the teacher. The more powerful the God King is now, the more disgraced and dishonored he will be when he turns around. Come on, let's go out to meet him after drinking this cup. Advertisement. Ancestor God Chaos, what is this? When Zeus led many gods of Olympus, they descended from the earth to the ocean in mighty strength. The majestic breath of Grey. It directly shocked the numerous gods in the entire ocean, all of them turned pale with horror. And it's not just Poseidon offshore. Pontus, the original sea god of the deep sea, and Arnold's, the master of the ocean and rivers, are two sea tombs. He also showed the same horror. With so many main gods, could it be that Poseidon finally gave in to Zeus? So Zeus poured out the power of Olympus to help him level the ocean. Annihilate me and Arnold's of Russia. Pontos, the primitive sea god with a strange face and dark blue hair, was the most shocked at this moment. He didn't know exactly what happened. I just thought I was in trouble. Hastily summoned the gods who had sat down. And sent people to ocean rivers to persuade. Ocean, Arnold, my friend, Poseidon and Zeus are all the masters of the three generations of gods today, and they are brothers of the same root. Once the two put aside their conflicts, if you and I don't put aside our differences, we will join forces to fight against the enemy. It must be the end of being defeated one by one. Quote, I hope you don't take any chances anymore, the only chance is to make a quick decision. I have sent to the land to contact my brother Uriah, lord of the mountains. Combine the power of our three parties, and then add the scattered guests to mention the gods. The soldiers of Olympus are not irresistible. There is still a turning point for everything, everyone knows. Enter Pontos. Receive Pontos' letter of alliance. It is also Oak Arnold's, the lord of oceans and rivers, who is shaking, hesitating and gritting his teeth to make a choice. At this moment, his eyes suddenly became silly. I saw the boundless sea. The gods that surged from Olympus reached the sea near Poseidon's palace. Suddenly stopped. The majestic and proud Zeus in the royal robe. Swinging the lightning spear, he slashed several divine thunders directly at the sea surface. A huge roar shook the ocean. It's not just Arnold's. Pontos in the deep sea is also a bit sluggish. What's going on? You have so many main gods here, making such a big commotion. Didn't he come to beat us? When the two sea emperors were stunned in place, at a loss. On the sea of lightning flashing. Crash out of many gods. Unexpectedly, they all held various musical instruments, playing, and floated to the surface of the water very festively. The leader is a person with blonde hair and silver eyes, handsome and extraordinary. Your Majesty the God King, you led the gods of Olympus to the ocean in person. I am ordered by His Majesty Poseidon to welcome you late, so I hope you don't blame me. On the turbulent sea, the handsome Poros, with an apologetic expression on his face, he faced the murderous team of gods headed by Zeus in the sky. Although I had prepared early, my heart was still moved at this moment. The strength of Olympus is indeed far from comparable to Hades, where gods are scarce. Advertisement. Just in front of him, there are more than 10 main gods, big and small. There are also high-ranking gods such as Themis, the goddess of justice, Apollo, and Artemis. Hermes, Ares, and other middle and low-level main gods are even more numerous. To overthrow the rule of Zeus. It's not that simple. It may not be enough to just defeat him. Poros was moved by the strength of Olympus. The menacing Zeus in the sky. Also startled for a moment. Instinctively felt that something was wrong. But soon he roared loudly. Son of the goddess of the night, tell your teacher Prometheus to get out. He stole the fire and destroyed the flame of Olympus. I will use his life today to maintain the majesty of the court. The roar of Zeus was accompanied by thunder and lightning that shook the sky. A brilliant and terrifying electric arc. Cruising between the sea and the sky, it makes the gods tremble and all things become phoenixes. The supreme majesty of the king of the gods is as deep as hell. A terrified look appeared on Poros' face. Your Majesty the God King, I have also heard about the Olympus flame, but from last night until now. Teacher and I are both guests of His Majesty Poseidon, talking about the strategy against Pontus. All the gods of the sea can testify to this. Zeus's eyes suddenly turned cold, and he locked on him coldly. Poros, though I have great respect for the goddess Nyx. But if you dare to make excuses for Prometheus again, I will punish you today too. Boom! A series of violent lightning, thunderously resounded above the vast sky. A huge and terrifying sound lingered in Poros' ears. Poros breathed a sigh of relief. As expected, Zeus was afraid of his titular mother, Nyx, and did not rashly attack him. Now it's just intimidation. Then there is no problem with the plan. At this time, the sea below was churning with huge waves. In a huge wave, the burly and blue-haired sea emperor Poseidon stepped out proudly holding a trident. Beside him, Prometheus in white robe and white hair stands impressively with him. Zeus, my brother, why did you come to me in such a big fight? As soon as it surfaced, Poseidon approached Zeus with a bold face. An arc flickered in the eyes of the king of gods. Locked on Prometheus with a swipe, thunder bursts all over his body. The lightning spear was raised directly. Poseidon, I'm here to capture Prometheus and punish him. Give him to me. Looking at the lightning spear in front of his eyes. Poseidon, who was originally heroic and hospitable, suddenly turned cold. Zeus, what do you mean? Only a loud bang was heard. The continuous waves around suddenly rolled up white and monstrous waves. The burly Poseidon also raised his trident, icy staring at Zeus in front of him. Lightning intertwined with sea waves. The vast sea rolled up a monstrous storm. Advertisement. The terrifying scene, even the many powerful main gods present, were all shocked by it. Hermes next to Zeus hurriedly said, Neptune Emperor, Father God was only furious because the Olympus holy flame was stolen. Prometheus is currently the biggest suspect in stealing the fire, and we are here to question him. The flame of Olympus has been stolen. It's because some people don't have the skills themselves, so what's the point of coming to me to play wild? Poseidon growled, looked at Prometheus beside him and said, Poros already told you guys just now, and I'll say it again now. The prophet Prometheus and his students visited me yesterday to discuss the ocean situation. There's no way to go to your Olympus and steal any flame. All the gods of the sea can testify to this. Wielding a trident, Poseidon stared coldly at Zeus' eyes. After he finished speaking, the many gods in the ocean also hurriedly responded. Yes, your majesty the god king, are you making a mistake? When the sacred flame of Olympus was stolen, Prometheus predicted them, and it was definitely in the ocean. The noisy sound echoed around. Let the face of the king of the gods become even more livid. Suddenly, he heavily raised the lightning spear in his hand. Infinite thunder shook the sea and sky. Everything is dead. In the panic of the gods, he declared indifferently. Is Prometheus the fire thief? I will judge for myself when I bring him back to Olympus. Quote. Now, if anyone dares to stop me, then. Same with him. Zeus' tough voice made Bo-Handong's expression extremely ugly. The trident caused thousands of waves, and the emperor of the sea roared angrily. Zeus, is my guarantee useless? Boom. Poseidon's voice just fell. A dazzling lightning flashed down from the sky. It brushed against the side of his head holding the trident. Dazzling lightning flashes. A strand of hair on the left side of the sea emperor was burned off. After finishing all this, Zeus said lightly, Poseidon, in this matter, you are indeed not qualified to guarantee. The whole sea was silent. All the gods looked at the burly, majestic and tall ocean lord. A hand rests on the burned strands of hair on the left side of his head. His face turned from white to red, and he trembled with anger. The tightly held trident seemed to be pulled out several times, and it was thrown heavily on the face of the king of the gods. But Panasonic several times. It seemed like a long time. Under the sarcastic eyes of the god king holding a lightning spear, the trident symbolizing the sea Wang Quan. In the end, it still didn't come out. Seeing this scene, Poros knew he should do it. Poseidon is willing to help the two of them out of the benefits he promised. But he never became an enemy of Zeus, and he also wanted to keep the determination of the two of them. Zeus obviously saw this too. Advertisement. The attitude is so tough. Stands beside. He gave Prometheus a look. At this time, the old prophet walked to Poseidon step by step. Facing Zeus, he said, Your Majesty the God King, from the time you came here to now, you have always said that I am the thief who stole the holy flame of Olympus. But what proof do you have for saying that? While speaking, he also looked at a dignified goddess behind Zeus holding a sword and blindfolded. Goddess Themis, you are also here. Please do my tongue justice. Quote. The dignified goddess nodded slightly and stepped out from among the gods. She is Themis, goddess of justice, law and justice. The most credible god among the gods, responsible for the rewards and punishments of the gods in Olympus. The eyes covered with cloth strips represent that justice is only in the heart and is not subject to any external compromise. The sword held high symbolizes the courage to sanction any god and never flinch. When Prometheus called out the goddess, Zeus felt bad. I was angry for a while, and I formed power for Bo-Handong. Call out most of the powerful main gods of Olympus. But accidentally let the goddess of justice also follow. But when things came to an end, he didn't back down. Glancing at Prometheus coldly, he shouted, The holy fire of Olympus gathers all the extinctions in the whole world. This is the disaster that I have brought upon mankind. And besides you, the creator of mankind, who else would be willing to take the risk and steal the fire? A smile appeared on the corner of Prometheus' mouth. Okay, Your Majesty the God King, if you say that, all of this is still your speculation. But as far as I know, the people who stole the fire also destroyed the holy fire. From this behavior, I think that the person probably stole it out of hostility to Shenting. He may be your enemy and steal the fire just to get revenge on you. Not for humans as you might guess. Quote, Zeus was taken aback by Prometheus' words. He also knew something about the white-robed prophet in front of him, who was regarded as his teacher. If he were to steal the fire, it was indeed unlikely that he would destroy the torch. Is it really the tinder that someone else stole? The purpose is to provoke shunting. No, destroying the torch may be the old guy's strategy to get himself off the hook. What's more, whether he stole it or not, he will die today. Roaring in his heart, Zeus' eyes became extremely cold. Here it is, across from Poros among the gods. Suddenly said, Your Majesty, Goddess of Justice. I seem to have just heard about the murderer who went to Olympus to steal the fire. He is a mysterious man wearing a cloak and a mask. I don't know if you have searched for him carefully. They all said that they were wearing a cloak and a mask, but I don't know the exact appearance. Then anyone could be him, so why search for Shen? Zeus scolded coldly. At this moment, a god suddenly came from afar. Your Majesty the God King, we have found traces of the fire stealer on the Caucasus mountain. Well, that's impossible. Zeus stared at the god who reported. Advertisement. On rough sea. The eyes of the gods froze, and they all looked closely at the god who came to report. Zeus glared at him even more fiercely. Say what you just said again, there must be no mistakes. The god hurriedly said, Your Majesty, we are ordered to check all parts of the land. Not long ago, I discovered that on the Caucasus Mountains in the west of the land, someone was scolding you at some point. So we wanted to arrest him, and found that the characteristics of that person were exactly the same as those of the fire thief. Wearing a pitch-black cloak, with a weirdly distorted mask on his face, and the smell of fire remaining on his hands, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. After listening to him, Poseidon suddenly sneered. Zeus, you keep saying that Prometheus is a fire thief, and my guarantee doesn't work. Then why is the real fire thief appearing now? Prometheus also said to the goddess of justice holding a sword and covering her eyes with cloth strips. Goddess Themis, has the current situation proved my innocence? The dignified and solemn Lady Justice turned her face towards Zeus hesitantly. The king of the gods clenched the lightning spear in his hand, his face was livid, and he suddenly snorted coldly. Who knows if this fire thief hidden under the cloak and mask was impersonated by someone in order to get rid of the crime. Having said that, he pointed to the gods behind and ordered. Hermes, Apollo, Artemis, you three are going to the Caucasus Mountains. Bring him back to me, I want to see the true face of the so-called fire thief. Of order. Hermes nodded immediately. The sisters and brothers Apollo and Artemis stared at each other and walked out together with Hermes. At this time, Ares and the team shouted eagerly, Father God, I want to go too. Hear his voice. Hermes, who had just stepped out over there, couldn't help but stagnate. Experienced what happened last time. Now he would rather take a lower god out than fight with this god of war. But Zeus was very satisfied with Ares' initiative to ask for a fight. Immediately nodded and agreed. Okay, you go together. Ares thanks ecstatically. He drew out the big sword on his body on the spot, and said with flames in his eyes. Before in Olympus, this god of war was careless for a while, and let the thief who had destroyed the pavilion slip away. This time, definitely cut him into 8 pieces. Haha, do you think I didn't see you being kicked like a dog eating shit this morning? Hermes wanted to laugh but couldn't. Reluctantly fly in front. And this time on the steep Caucasus Mountains. Advertisement. Poros, covered by a black cloak and twisted mask, sat quietly. Received the picture shared by Ocean Shadow. He looked around and Prometheus arranged in an emergency formation. He muttered in his mouth. Zeus, you are not the first to come here, to enjoy this great gift I gave you, what a disappointment. But it doesn't matter, you still have to come here once after all. While muttering softly, he slowly stood up. Slowly came to the cliff in the distance, looking into the distance. Not long, Hermes, with black hair and brown pupils, was the first to appear from the horizon, holding a coiled snake golden staff. Apostle of Olympus, I knew you would be the first to come. The deep voice seemed to carry a strange magic power. From under the criss-crossed, twisted and weird mask, it came faintly. Hermes in the air stopped in an instant. Standing in the sky, watching the dark figure standing on the cliff with vigilance. Fire thief, who are you? The messenger of the gods asked. The name is never important, just like Zeus, are you more familiar with this name, or his title of king of the gods? Under the mask, Poros let out a faint laugh. Then you take the name of fire stealer to steal fire for mankind. No, you're wrong. The eternal flame of Olympus, symbolized by the immortal Wang Quan of Zeus. And this is the fire I want to steal. Under Hermes' frown, Poros gently raised his cloak-covered hands. Stare at the sky and hold gently. It's like holding the whole world in your hand. Arrogant, presumptuous, Hermes roared angrily. He couldn't tolerate someone in front of him, swearing that he wanted to take away Wang Quan, his father. The authority of travel was activated suddenly. His figure jumped continuously, approaching the cliffs where Poros stands from every angle. Come on, let me see the real face under your mask. When approached to a certain extent, Hermes stretched out his palm, activated the stealing authority, and grabbed Poros' face. And at this moment, a faint sigh entered his ears. O emissary of the gods who are good at stealing, you know it. If a thief is caught, he usually cuts off his hand. The voice just came into my ears. Hermes felt dizzy for a while, and his thinking was frozen. Advertisement. Can't do anything. He was startled and shook his body trying to get out of this state. But just finished the action of opening eyes. I saw a face with intertwined lines, twisted and weird, and the deepness appeared in front of my eyes. Then there was a sudden pain in the right wrist that had just been stretched out. Like being cut by something sharp. Made him want to scream in pain. Then there was a muffled sound of being kicked in the abdomen. Boom, accompanied by a crisp crash. The envoy of the gods who had just come aggressively, was kicked into the nearby mountain wall with 10 feet. The whole person is like a mold, completely embedded in the rocks. Hermes, Ares, who had just arrived and saw this astonishing scene, uttered a loud roar. Not just him, now far away in the ocean. Not long after the 4 main gods were sent out. Zeus borrowed a crystal from his queen Hera. In the face of the gods, shine in the direction of the Caucasus Mountains. This crystal is the most precious artifact of the Queen Hera. Being able to directly see anything happening in every corner of the earth. Usually, it is used by the jealous queen to watch over her erotic husband. This is often one catch one accurate. Even Zeus can't do anything with this crystal. At this moment, he lent the mirror to let the gods of the ocean know his powerful performance as the main god of Olympus. No idea, just started. The first picture presented was his most trusted son, Hermes. The wrist was cut off and embedded in the mountain wall. This miserable scene immediately caused all the surrounding gods to discuss it. Zeus immediately snorted coldly. The strongest thing about Hermes is the flexible and changeable travel ability. But this fire stealer seems to be able to see the trajectory of his jumping space in advance, so he suffered a disadvantage. But Ares is different. His ability to fight head-on can definitely split the thief in half with a single sword. Quote. When he speaks, in the crystal, Ares has indeed raised the generous sword in his hand. Surrounded by the evil spirit of war, the flames of blood and fire are transpiring and burning. Indescribably mighty and domineering, people can't help but praise after seeing it. What a mighty god of war! The thief who stole the fire, eat me with a sword. Advertisement. As the gods watched, Ares roared loudly, and the blood and fire-burning sword tore through the space. He swiftly slashed at the figure shrouded in the cloak. But at this moment, the space ahead suddenly trembled. Poros' figure disappeared without a trace. The god of war stood there stunned, not knowing where to cut the great sword full of bloody flames. At this time, a chuckle suddenly came from my ear. I kicked my waist in the morning, too, let's do it again. Accompanied by a muffled kicking sound. Ares felt a heavy impact on his waist. The body covered with thick armor suddenly tilted. Fall face down from the air. The gravel is splashing. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. This scene fell into the eyes of the gods, and all of them suddenly laughed. And Zeus's face was ashen and darker than that of god of war. It is almost necessary to close the crystal directly. Fortunately, at this moment, he saw 2 sharp arrows, one gold and one silver, shooting towards the cloaked figure through the air. Here comes the spirit. Ares and Hermes are both mid-level and low-level main gods, and they are no match for this thief. But Apollo and Artemis are my favorite sons and daughters, and each is a powerful god of the 7th level of the main god. Quote. They shoot at the same time, and it won't take long for the thieves to transform into hedgehogs. The words of the king of the gods have been recognized by many gods. Although the fire stealer easily defeated the two main gods. But the god of light and the goddess of hunting are all famous high-level main gods. Known as the long-range twins. The same mother and compatriots, the same heart. The two joined forces, even the most powerful gods at the apex of the main gods like Neptune and Pluto are enough to match. Among the gods, outside the few primordials, only the king of the gods can fight against the two of them at the same time. Among the gods, Athena, who knows the true identity of the fire stealer under the cloak. See the gold and silver double arrows shot. The bright eyes were no longer calm as before, but worried. She has been in Olympus for many years, and she has a clear understanding of the background of each god. Among the 4 generations of gods, Hermes, Ares, Hephaestus, etc., although the reputation is not small. But in terms of strength, it's just that. Only Apollo and Artemis made her afraid. If she only meets one person alone, she still has the confidence to win. But if you meet 2 of them at the same time, you will definitely lose. Poros, you must be careful. Advertisement. Whoosh. Whoosh. Above the steep mountain peaks. 1 gold and 1 silver, 2 sharp arcs, light. Fast as a meteor, swift as electricity. Reflecting each other in the midair, they approached the masked cloaked figure in front of the cliff. Well, good arrow. The lines are distorted, weird, under the mask of the deep. Suddenly there was a light drink. When the gold and silver arrows enveloped him, the pitch-black figure remained motionless. A slender black scepter with a purple crystal inlaid on the top suddenly appeared in the palm of his hand. Appears instantly. The scepter suddenly shot 2 rays of light into the void. 2 arrows of gold and silver covered in the middle. Bang bang, accompanied by 2 dull sounds. Both sharp arrows exploded in the air, flying debris scattered in all directions. See this scene. 2 tall and straight figures bowed from 2 directions from far away. Eyes that were as bright as gold and as cold as the moon couldn't help but shrink back. Gently hold the king of destruction. Poros's masked face evoked a smile. The long-shot twins of the goddess Leto. Let me see if your strength is as scary as the rumors say. Apollo and Artemis looked at each other. Across the sky, he once again pulled up the bow and arrow in his hand. Fire stealer, no one can be safe after provoking our siblings. You won't be that exception either. Quote, the handsome and proud Guangming god spoke with arrogance and determination. On the drawn bowstring. At the same time, more than a dozen golden sharp arrows appeared, like the beams of the Serratus sun shooting to the earth. Swipe to where Poros is, swarming. And on the other side. The silver bow of Artemis, the goddess of hunting, also had dozens of silver arrows. Like the light of the silvery moon that is bright and cold at night. Severely pull the strings, skimming the silvery white arc in the air. These 2 arrows of gold and silver, although shot from 2 different angles. But it was as if it had been agreed in advance. Lock the dead corners of Poros in all directions. Gold and silver shine like the sun and the moon in the sky. It actually formed a blazing bright and mighty force, as well as a cold and cruel natural will. Siege locked target. The space around Poros seemed to be sealed for a moment. Good combo, but not enough. Under the pitch-black cloak, Poros let out a soft laugh. He suddenly raised the slender scepter in his hand. Amethyst emits deep rays of light. The king of destruction distorts the laws, smashes everything, and is not restricted by the root. At the moment Poros is only a slight push though. The true Xeon power of this artifact of destruction was not used at all. But under the influence of the faint light emitted from the top of the scepter. Everything around, whether it's a flying arrow or a shining mighty force, tangible and intangible, all began to twist and shatter. Bang bang, bang bang bang, a series of exploding sounds, like firecrackers burning in series, crackling. Resounding in the void where all kinds of light and shadow intersect. Everything is distorted and chaotic. Gods who see through crystals. I just feel inexplicable, and I can't see the picture clearly at all. Only Zeus's heart burst. Keep an eye on the battle in the crystal. Advertisement. Boom. A series of cracking sounds intertwined together. In the end, it caused a huge roar, shaking the void. All kinds of laws and mighty forces are twisted and intertwined, and matter and energy are smashed to the extreme. The tyrannical aftermath hit Yuankong directly. The complexions of Apollo and Artemis holding bows and arrows changed. At the same time back quickly. At this time, he saw a slender figure shrouded in a pitch-black cloak, holding a black scepter high in his hand. He quickly flew towards the two of them. See this situation. Apollo and Artemis put away their bows and arrows. Instead, get closer to each other. At the same time, the body reflects the majestic might. First, there are bunches of dazzling rays of light, carrying blazing temperature, wandering and intertwining in the void. Then there is the invisible mighty force of nature, which contains the taste of freedom, savagery, and cruelty, surging from all directions. After these two forces appeared, like organic substances that attract each other, they are completely harmonious and form a colossal force. The vast expanse is covered with a pitch-black figure that is approaching step by step. Nice fit. Under the mask, Poros praised Shang from the bottom of his heart. The siblings, Apollo and Artemis, are both seventh-level personalities of the main god. But at this moment, the two divine powers are accommodated together and cooperate with each other. The intertwined charm has faintly reached the level of the apex of the main god. This is not an easy task. Because of the divine power attributes of these two people. One is mainly in the field of light, and the other is mainly in the field of nature. It is not a natural unity like the sun and the moon. Forced integration. It should have conflicted with each other, resulting in serious backlash. But the two, relying on the strong tacit understanding between each other, accurately achieved the perfect reflection. During the period of guiding mankind to build Athens, Poros himself, I also tried this kind of cooperation with Athena. They are also unnaturally similar attributes of divine power. 30 years of hard work. In the end, at most 10 times, there will be no conflicts 2 or 3 times. To reach the level of the two in front of you, it is still short of hundreds of thousands of years of running in. But that's not enough. Hold high the king of destruction. Poros will push the divine power of his main god man to the extreme. The supreme heart on the chest beats at the same time. Invisible stalwart waves, rumbling to form an increase. Like a sleeping supreme king opening his eyes. This moment. All kinds of authority in his body, as well as divine power, spirit, and will. They all seem to have been sublimated into a rounded point, belonging to the apex of God. Poros understood at this time that under the 50% increase of the supreme heart, his personality of the 8th level of the main god has successfully touched the 9th level of the main god. This is indeed a field completely different from the 8th level of the main god. Strength, spirit, will, and authority all produce extreme compression and become a solid point. He knew why the 9th level of the main god was called the peak of gods. It's a different feeling. Sui Ran's gaze pierced through the faint hole on the twisted mask and shot around. Poros sighed softly. The king of destruction, in his hand sprayed out a series of deep rays. Twist the laws and smash everything. All kinds of symbols and majestic powers shrouded in the surroundings were all distorted and shattered. The two main gods, Apollo and Artemis, retreated hastily. The god of light yelled at the side at the same time, Hermes, Ares, how long are you two going to die? His voice fell. Poros noticed a sudden jump in the nearby space. The corner of the mouth curled up a slight arc. Boom. The king of destruction pointed to a corner of the void. Advertisement. A slender figure suddenly appeared there. It was Hermes, the messenger of the gods. The wrist of his right hand was neatly chopped off, but still enduring the severe pain. After getting out of trouble on the mountain wall early, after discovering the arrival of the Apollo siblings. Just hide in the dark, ready to wait for the opportunity to move. It wasn't until the Apollo siblings called out urgently that they were ready to take action. But under Poros' piercing gaze, his hiding is useless. The king of destruction sprayed out a deep and dazzling light. It shines directly on the left side of Hermes' body. Then there was a scream. The half of the body of the envoys of the gods was shattered as if it was directly dissolved. Not cut open and chopped off. Rather, it is like an organism covered in an acid-based substance. Rapid dissolution collapses and finally disappears into dust. When all this is done in the blink of an eye, the internal organs of the other half of Hermes' body were still running bloody. This tragic scene shocked Apollo and Artemis in the distance. And the gods who were watching the battle from a distance in the ocean were even more frightened. It's terrible, this fire thief is definitely not Prometheus. He is a monster from Tartarus like Typhon. Demon. Many gods roared tremblingly. For the ordinary gods of Olympus, Tartarus, the abyss, is the embodiment of all horror and terror. There is the most feared demon. Just like Typhon, the father of all demons who came out and gave birth to monsters one after another on the earth. In their hearts, the existence shrouded in the black cloak in the picture. It is as terrifying as Typhon. Only ferocious monsters from Tartarus. Zeus also shrank his pupils severely. At this time, even he was a little shaken in his heart. Is it true that the matter of the holy torch has nothing to do with Prometheus? Is this, fire stealer, a mysterious horror that came out of the abyss or a place similar to that door? It's not impossible. When the gods are horrified. Caucasus Mountains. Poros glanced lightly. After being shot by the king of destruction, half of his body was destroyed. Hermes fainted and fell into the mountain. In fact, he didn't expect that the king of destruction would directly affect people. There will be such a terrifying effect. This is also the first time he used it. But it can be understood from the introduction of the system. The most powerful artifact born for killing and destruction, use it to destroy the world. Involuntarily, Poros felt the thought of letting go of everything and releasing destruction. This made him vigilant. The king of destruction is powerful, but what if you can't hold it firmly? Maybe it will be affected by it in reverse, and become a tyrannical monster that only knows killing and destruction. This thought flashed through my mind. Poros controls the supreme heart on his chest. The heart of the supreme king. Immediately, a sacred and supreme power was emitted in the body. I want to ease and maintain a balance with the will to destroy that pours into my heart from my hands. Only the king with the highest heart can hold the king of destruction. Poros murmured inwardly. His eyes calmly glanced at the black scepter tightly held in his hand. At this moment, he felt a murderous aura coming from behind him. Despicable thief, take the sword from Ares. Ares, god of war, kicked to the ground. Finally got up, swing his great sword burning with blood and fire. Attacked from behind. Poros looked at him lightly, and suddenly said slowly, this time it's the waist. After speaking, his figure flashed. Advertisement. Ares instinctively protects that. Got kicked twice. At this moment, the pain in the lower back is unbearable. The next moment, he felt a heavy blow in his chest. Kr. The god of war stared angrily at no one knew when he would appear in the sky above him. A pitch-black figure who kicked his chest. That look seemed to be questioning, but it was clearly not about this part. Watch him fall hard into the mountain wall below. The lines are intertwined, and under the twisted and weird mask, there is a faint laughter. I lied to you. There was another muffled sound. Under the eyes of the gods in the ocean who wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. Ares is lying embedded in the rock this time. Directly on the Caucasus mountain, forming a deep, big, shaped tunnel. Then it seemed that he was hit hard on the head. Also passed out on the spot. In front of the crystal, Zeus gritted his teeth with a livid face. At this time, I saw a dark figure holding a scepter in the picture. Slowly lock the direction where Apollo and Artemis are. Only then did I pull myself together and continue watching. Apollo, Artemis, I know that your strengths are not limited to those just now. Come on, let me see if you have the ability to threaten me. Zeus thought to himself. He sent Apollo and Artemis to go. One purpose is to test this increasingly powerful pair of sons and daughters. Is there any hidden strength? Now the performance of the fire stealer has made him lose face. But it's also a good litmus test. Try out the true strength of the Apollo siblings. However, while he was staring, Poros on the Caucasus mountain suddenly raised his gaze to the far sky. Under the mask with twisted lines, there was a sarcastic laugh. Zeus, peeping is not a good habit, let me help you quit. The voice just fell. Facing the top of the Caucasus mountain in the distance with his palm, he slowly outlined a complex pattern. An invisible and obscure force was pulled out immediately. Then, under the stunned eyes of many gods in the ocean, the crystal in Zeus's hand suddenly became blurred. Until there was chaos, countless strange lights and shadows interlaced. God King, is this crystal broken? A god blurted out and asked. To meet him, it was Zeus' eyes that were so angry that they almost breathed fire. Poseidon next to him didn't think it was a big deal to watch the excitement. He sarcastically said, "Zeus, it seems that this fire stealer does have a grudge against you, and he doesn't even want you to see it." Poseidon. Zeus looked at the brother angrily. This gaze made the sea emperor extremely excited. Earlier he was bullied by Zeus. In front of the gods, I lost all face. But now the feng shui turns, and Zeus loses again and again, which is embarrassing. Comparing the two, he is not so ashamed. This made Poseidon feel very comfortable. And Zeus didn't want to entangle him in this matter. After roaring a few times, he frowned and looked at the blurry crystal. Why is this reaction so similar to when it is used to peek into the depths of the earth and the three realms of Hades? Those places are because of the root power contained in the original god, which shields all external exploration. Could it be that this person has also used the power of the root cause? As soon as this idea arises, the king of the gods was shocked for a moment. Impossible, how can there be a primordial god in this world for no reason? It's impossible to die. Advertisement. This power. In the vast void, Artemis and Apollo stared around in shock. Just now, the mysterious figure in the black cloak in front of him drew complicated and weird patterns. This whole Caucasus mountain surrounds. Then it was shrouded by a great and obscure deep force. But what shocked the long-range twins even more? Under the cover of this power, all kinds of powers of oneself seem to be bound by invisible shackles. There is no sense of comfort at all as usual. Can suppress authorities prying against the law, is this power. The god of light and the goddess of hunting suddenly realized something. Over there, holding the king of destruction tightly, and at the same time propping up the root formation, Poros. Wearing a twisted and weird mask. But he didn't move at all, his peaceful eyes pierced through the deep holes in the mask. Silently staring at the pair of siblings. It seems that you are quite knowledgeable, so now you should understand that Zeus' eyes can no longer monitor this place. Why don't you take this opportunity and talk to me first? An indifferent voice with a gentle smile came from under the mask to the ears of the sisters and brothers of the god of light. We have nothing to talk to you about, fire thief. Apollo is full of dazzling light power. 423. While drinking coldly, at the same time, he tried to tear away the obscure areas gathered around him. At this moment, a black shadow flashed in front of his eyes. Okay. Apollo reacted instinctively, releasing the divine power of light to attack. But under the cover of the root formation, the time for his authority to function is much slower than usual. When he finishes launching, a slender hand shrouded in a cloak and covered by pitch-black gloves. It had already patted him on the shoulder lightly. Not a heavy touch. The handsome and elegant Guangming god broke out in a cold sweat in an instant. And when he reacted quickly and counterattacked the dark figure, behind it has become empty. There is only the lingering sound of an understatement, lingering and remaining. Apollo, if you are really loyal to Zeus, last night, there was no need to hide what happened in the sun car. Quote. Return to the original position. Under the mask, Poros stared peacefully at Apollo, whose complexion finally changed. How are you, Apollo? Only then did Artemis, the goddess of hunting, finally rush to her brother's side. Full of vigilance, he stared at where Poros was. Sister, I'm fine. A deep smile suddenly appeared on the handsome face of the god of light. First, he looked at the goddess of hunting calmly. Then he looked at Poros, who was quietly waiting for him on the opposite side with a slight chill. Advertisement. The person I met in the sun car last night was definitely not you. It wasn't me, but it was me who got you caught by Helios. Under the pitch-black cloak, Poros chuckled. Apollo couldn't help but snorted coldly. I remembered that when I was chased by Helios last night, I was tripped by a stone for no reason. Things that lead to being caught by mistake. He was weird then. It turned out that it was all the tricks of the people in front of me. Who are you, and what is your relationship with Prometheus? Apollo stared intently at the mysterious black figure in front of him. My identity has already been told to Hermes earlier. I am a fire stealer. It is Zeus's eternal holy fire of Olympus that was stolen. Poros raised his hands high and his voice was high and strong. The pupils of Apollo and Artemis couldn't help shrinking. They understood each other's meaning. The meaning of fire thief. It is to overthrow the gods and take the supreme Wangquan from the hands of the king of gods. You have such a big tone, such a big ambition. I just don't know if you really have the strength to match this tone and ambition. Apollo said sarcastically. What kind of strength I have, you will know soon. Poros looked up in the direction of the distant ocean. Just now, a picture of his shadow in the ocean. Zeus, who was unable to monitor the situation in the Caucasus Mountain due to the failure of the crystal, finally couldn't bear it. After ordering the goddess of justice and other gods to take good care of their shadows, and Prometheus turned into a violent thunder. Come to the earth. It's finally the last key. Then let me see how powerful the so-called king of the gods is. My heart was full of high-spirited fighting spirit. Poros set his sights on Apollo again. The reason why I waste my time telling you so much, it is because I know that you and your sister are very outstanding gods, and they are not loyal to Zeus. Quote, think about it, and cooperate with me to complete the real impending death. What Zeus can't give you, I can give you. Oh, then I'd like to hear what you can give me and my sister. A sneer appeared on the corner of Apollo's mouth. At this time, he saw the dark figure in front of him, and suddenly pointed to the sky. Look in that direction, a blazing and brilliant golden sun. It is above the sky, bringing light to all beings on the earth. The god chariot of the sun, the god chariot of the moon, you two should have coveted these two artifacts for a long time, right? In my eyes, the two of you are indeed more suitable for them than the Helios brothers and sisters. Advertisement. Smiling, Poros patted the cloak on his head lightly, and said casually, by the way, do you know the real origin of these two things? Uranus tried his best to create them with the source of light, but he didn't expect that the descendants would not live up to it. The ready-made root is there, but no one can use it to advance to the original. What a pity. This horrific information. In an instant, Apollo and Artemis were so far away that they were still in place. The chariot of the sun and the chariot of the moon were built by Uranus, the first god king. There is also the root of light in it. Can you help a suitable main god to be promoted to the original? The news is amazing, although both of them knew that these two divine cars were not simple. And they match their siblings very well. So get up early. But they didn't know at all that there was such an astonishing inside story hidden in it. It is precisely the two divine chariots that have been observed for a long time. When Poros told the truth, the two immediately judged that it was not a lie. It was even more shocking. The power of the root. The most important thing to be promoted to the original god. It can be said that as long as there is a root, it is basically an inevitable original. From the beginning of creation to the present, how many primordial beings are there in the whole world? Not even the god kings of the past dynasties. With such a temptation ahead, which god cannot be moved? But the fire stealer in front of him told the two of them indifferently. What is his origin? What is his identity? If the two Apollos were still suspicious of Poros before, guess if all of this is a terrifying scheme laid down by the greatest prophet of the court. At this moment, they have no doubts anymore. This is definitely not something that Prometheus can come up with. In front of him is the fire stealer, who claims to subvert the divine court. The power, mystery and terror contained in it are nothing more than that even for a few primordial masters. In his eyes, Uranus, the first god king, was just an ordinary character. Maybe it is the age of ignorance that has long been untestable at the beginning of the creation of the world. The ancient existence that survived. I can see the unrest in the hearts of the two. Poros smiled under the mask. This is exactly what he wanted to achieve. The persona he created for himself as a fire stealer is a combination of powerful, mysterious, knowledgeable and weird. Trying to overthrow the unknowable existence of shunting. First suppress with strength, then rely on what I learned from the temple of the goddess of destiny. It can be regarded as a success in suppressing the Apollo siblings. That's a good start. In the future, I can try to subdue these two people and use them for myself. To replace Zeus as the king of gods, there must be some people under his command. Advertisement. Otherwise, wait for yourself to take over. Maybe you have to learn from Zeus. Open up the harem and be merciful everywhere. To give birth to gods to help rule the world. Although Zeus has proved that this method is feasible. Half of the main gods of Olympus are his children. But it's too raw. At this moment, he suddenly raised his head and looked towards the sky. Take a deep breath. Finally, he said to the two Apollos, you can think about my words carefully, and I will come to you again in the future. Now, let's treat each other. The King of Destruction was suddenly lifted up. The intense rays were released in shock, in the astonished eyes of the Apollo siblings. Bombarded around them, the two of them didn't understand that they were still trying to win over just now. Why did you do it all of a sudden? He couldn't react for a while, and he was trapped in the root formation. The two were immediately sent flying by the berserk aftermath. He fell to the bottom of the mountain in embarrassment. At this time, thunder bursts suddenly came from the distant sky. Countless dark clouds gathered densely. The whole sky was covered with gray. Countless extremely arcs, like thin snakes, swim gorgeously in the vast sky. Burst out the ultimate bright fire. Amid thousands of thunder and lightning gathering, a tall and burly figure in royal robes appeared. Holding a bright spear, Icy appeared in the sky. The moment he appeared, the entire Guangtian became his face. The thunder and lightning that exploded around the world was his breath. The unrivaled majesty makes the mountains tremble. The sun and the stars also lost their light. In front of the supreme king of the gods, all shall be dimmed and shunned. The siblings Apollo and Artemis who were knocked out. Only then did he react. The fire thief wanted the two of them to hide their injuries from Zeus. Immediately at the foot of the mountain, he hummed loudly and said to the sky, "Father God, we have failed you. This fire thief is too scary, we are no match at all, we were seriously injured by him. Thank you for coming, stand tall in the sky." Zeus frowned. In the palm of his hand, he held the lightning spear that constantly spewed out thunder. Eyes full of arcs fixed on the cloaked figure standing on the steep mountain top. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.